Chapter 552. Every one of the primordial battle dragons was condensed from Chu Fengmian's sword. Demon Ancestor Li Sha was devoured, and the sword stirred. Demon Ancestor Li Sha was immediately shattered by the countless sword edges, and his blood, qi and spiritual energy were all devoured by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy had already reached its limit. Demon Ancestor Li Sha's blood qi suddenly appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand. With a single thought from Chu Fengmian, the blood qi within condensed into a fist-sized crystal. The spiritual energy within the crystal was much purer than that of a royal-grade spirit stone. It had even reached the legendary Emperor grade. Transform. Chu Fengmian's fingertip moved, and all the blood qi within the crystal was separated. Behind Chu Fengmian, the ancient slaughter god's shadow condensed and devoured the blood qi. All that was left was an incomparably pure spirit stone. Is this even something a human can do? The undying Demon Venerable and the bloody Demon Venerable were horrified when they saw ruthless Demon Venerable die at Chu Fengmian's hands and be refined into a spiritual stone. 3 high-level life and death experts besieged Chu Fengmian, yet they were easily dealt with, and even defeated in an instant. Leave quickly and report this to the sect. Demon Ancestor Bloodbath Demon Ancestor and Undying Demon Ancestor glanced at each other, and their figures moved, wanting to escape. However, before their escape light could condense, Chu Fengmian's body had already blocked their path. Want to escape now? Too late. You'll all stay here and accompany Demon Ancestor Li Sha and Dragon Emperor Yan Gu's cave. Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy crazily rose, and endless energy condensed on the sword edge in his hand. Shocking the heavens. Chu Fengmian indifferently spat out 2 words. The sword edge fell. Devil Paragon Undying and Devil Paragon Bloodbath both perished in the blink of an eye, their bodies exploding as Chu Fengmian collected their blood and qi. At the same time, 2 crystals were condensed in Chu Fengmian's hand. 3 colorless crystals were in Chu Fengmian's hands. Who would have thought that these 3 crystals belonged to 3 terrifying high-level life and death experts? My strength has finally reached this level. With my current strength, unless I am up against some old antiques in the northern region, even if I am unable to defeat them, I will still be able to retreat in one piece. There is no need for me to hide anything anymore. Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. Coming to the ancient Yan Dragon Emperor cave dwelling, Chu Fengmian had gained countless benefits. He had raised his strength to the limit of the divine power realm and even obtained the ancestral Dragon Paragon sword. Furthermore, Chu Fengmian had yet to reap the greatest benefit. The greatest benefit of Dragon Emperor Yan's cave abode was the boundless blood sea. The spiritual energy in the blood sea was the greatest wealth. Chu Fengmian's figure vanished in the blink of an eye and reappeared above the blood sea. Rise! Chu Fengmian urged his spiritual energy and grabbed the blood sea with his hand. The incomparably huge blood sea was directly pulled up by Chu Fengmian. The incomparably huge blood sea in Chu Fengmian's hand continuously shrank until it was only the size of a puddle of water. However, the spiritual energy contained in every drop of blood in the blood sea was much purer than before. Collect. When the blood sea had condensed to a radius of 100 meters, Chu Fengmian opened an empty ring and collected the blood sea completely. Looking at the blood sea, it was simply a huge sum of money. All the wealth Chu Fengmian had obtained before couldn't even be compared to a hair from 9 oxen. The spiritual energy in the blood sea was on the same level as the Saint Spring under the Northern Sea Academy. If Chu Fengmian was willing, he could already establish a sect and nurture a great force. With so much spiritual energy, what kind of disciple couldn't he nurture? However, Chu Fengmian didn't have such plans. His battle dragon art was a super glutton. Even if the blood sea's spiritual energy was enormous, there would be a day when it would be used up. Chu Fengmian also felt that the blood sea's spiritual energy wouldn't be enough for Chu Fengmian's cultivation when he reached the life and death realm. However, before reaching the life and death realm, Chu Fengmian could still wantonly consume the spiritual energy in the blood sea. Chu Fengmian moved his finger and condensed a puddle of blood from the blood sea. Immediately, the puddle of blood turned into the purest spiritual energy and turned into an emperor-grade spirit stone. The blood chi and dragon power were all devoured by the battle dragon art. The blood sea represented endless wealth. Chu Fengmian could also buy countless treasures to increase his strength. For Chu Fengmian, pure spiritual energy couldn't increase his strength by much. Chu Fengmian had to buy countless treasures to support him to break through the bottleneck. Let's go. I've already obtained countless treasures in this ancient Yan Dragon Emperor cave. It's time to leave. Chu Fengmian's figure flickered and disappeared from this space. The ancient Yan Dragon Emperor cave was still extremely chaotic. In fact, it was even more chaotic than when Chu Fengmian first entered. Countless forces and experts swarmed in to fight for the treasures inside. Apart from the Blood Sea and the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword, there were also countless treasures inside the cave. A single Emperor Great Spirit Stone was enough to make many life and death experts go crazy. Chu Fengmian saw countless killings and robberies along the way. However, Chu Fengmian was no longer interested in these things. The Blood Sea was worth millions or even tens of millions of Emperor Great Spirit Stones. How could a rich man snatch things from some beggars? At the exit of Dragon Emperor Yan's cave abode, several experts suddenly sealed off the space. These experts came from some first-rate forces in the North region. Although these forces couldn't compete with the two behemoths, North Sea Academy and Earth Demon Sect, their combined strength was enough to make the North Sea Academy apprehensive. The experts from the first-rate forces had joined forces and sealed off the exit of Dragon Emperor Yan's cave abode. Countless martial artists were stuck here, unable to leave. Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw Bai Xian among them. It seemed that Bai Xian had also suffered some injuries in the ancient Yan Dragon Emperor cave. Her clothes were dyed red, and her aura was unstable. Clearly, she had suffered some serious injuries. These experts sealed the exit, making it impossible for anyone to leave. Chapter 553. Kanglin Family. Feng Family. Burning Sky Sect. These three forces have sealed off the exit. What are they trying to do? The martial artists present were all stuck inside, unable to leave. They sized up the martial artists of the three forces and started discussing. However, their complexions didn't look too good. These three forces couldn't have gathered here just to drink tea. Thump. Thump. A middle-aged martial artist walked out from the crowd. The moment they saw him, countless people were startled. It's Kanglin family's elder, Kanglin and I. This Kanglin and I is at the 6th level of life and death realm. How could such a high-level life and death expert appear here? Some martial artists cried out in alarm. Kanglin and I was a big shot of the Kanglin family. Any high-level life and death expert wouldn't be considered weak in any force of the North region. Kanglin and I walked out from the crowd and took a step forward. He swept his gaze over the crowd and coldly snorted. Everyone, please give our three forces some face and hand over all the treasures you obtained from Dragon Emperor Yan's cave. As long as you hand over all the treasures, we can let you leave safely. Kanglin and I said. Although his tone was calm, it contained an extremely frightening killing intent. Those who heard it couldn't help but feel their hearts turn cold. His words contained an extremely frightening spiritual power. Some of the weaker martial artists directly fainted from the shock. What? Damn it, the people from the three major forces actually want to snatch our treasures? They're simply bandits. They want to rob us. The Kanglin family is too arrogant. Some of the martial artists frowned when they heard Kanglin these words. Some of them even revealed killing intent in their eyes. Cutting off one's path to wealth was like killing one's parents. The treasures they obtained from Dragon Emperor Yan's cave were obtained through countless battles. Now, with just a few words from Kanglin and I, it was impossible for them to hand over all their treasures. The people of the Kanglin family are really arrogant. You dare to seal the cave of Dragon Emperor Yangu? Even the Northern Sea Academy doesn't dare to do this. How dare you? In the crowd, a martialist suddenly stepped forward and shouted at the Kanglin and I. What if we don't hand it over? Before the martial artist finished speaking, a killing intent suddenly appeared in the eyes of the Kanglin rebel. he said in an incomparably cold voice. Those who disobey will be killed without mercy. Bang! Kanglin and I waved his hand and grabbed at the martial artist. The martial artist was immediately caught in his hand. A junior who hasn't even passed the life and death tribulation dares to be impudent in front of me? Die! Ah! That martial artist let out a blood-curdling scream as he was instantly crushed by the Azure Sea Reverse. Warriors who could come to the Void Ocean were all peak saints and had some status in the various forces. However, the cultivator in front of him had been crushed to death by the Azure Sea Reversal without any hesitation. Let's see who dares to provoke our Kanglin family. The Azure Sea Reverse sneered as his eyes swept across the crowd. Immediately, a few life and death realm martial artists in the crowd couldn't help but take a few steps back. Even if they had reached the life and death realm, they couldn't contend against the Azure Sea Reverse, who was at the high level of the life and death realm. The scene fell silent. No one dared to go against the Azure Sea Reverse. Now, everyone, hand over all the treasures. Those who disobey will die. The Azure Sea Reverse's eyes swept across the crowd. This sentence was a direct threat. When he saw that no one was moving, he suddenly charged towards one of the supremacies and made a grabbing motion. Bang! This martialist died in the hands of the Azure Sea Reverse without any hesitation. No one has taken the initiative to hand over the treasures. Then, all of you will die today. The Azure Sea Reverse roared and waved his hand. It swept towards the crowd, wanting to kill them all. Kill! Let's fight it out with the Azure Sea Reverse. Countless martial artists also fought back. None of them could make them hand over the treasures they had painstakingly obtained in Dragon Emperor Yengu's cave. Humph! A disciple of a second-rate force, Falling Leaves sect, dares to fight me? Die! The Azure Sea defying sword suddenly struck out with a palm, directly crushing the first martial artist who shouted. Suddenly, his eyes flickered and swept across the crowd. He suddenly saw a white figure. This white figure was Bai Xian. Bai Xian, I heard that you obtained countless treasures in Dragon Emperor Yengu's cave. Hand over all the treasures you have. Considering that you are a disciple of North Sea Academy, I can still let you live today. The Azure Sea Reverse coldly said to Bai Xian. Dream on. Bai Xian snorted and slashed at the Azure Sea Reverse with her sword. With Bai Xian's personality, how could she allow herself to be slaughtered by the Azure Sea Reverse? Humph, you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. So what if you are a disciple of North Sea Academy? You're just an inner disciple. If I kill you, North Sea Academy won't dare to fall out with our Azure Sea family. Since you don't know when to back down, I'll kill you first. The Azure Sea Reverse sneered and sent out a palm, shattering Bai Xian's sword. His strength was at the high level of life and death realm. Dealing with some divine force realm martial artists was a piece of cake. Die! The Azure Sea Reverse spat out a single word and sent out a palm. Powerful spiritual energy was an absolute killing move. The Azure Sea Reverse's full strength was displayed. Bai Xian felt the power of this palm and her face was filled with fear. A high-level life and death realm expert's tyrannical power wasn't something she could resist. If this palm fell, Bai Xian would die without a doubt. Break! However, almost at this moment, a sound suddenly descended from the sky. This sound was like the roar of a battle dragon. Immediately, the power of the Azure Sea Reverse's palm was completely blocked by this dragon's roar. The power was completely dissolved. The Azure Sea Reverse retreated countless times. Feeling this power, his face turned incomparably grave. Just a single word was enough to dissolve the power of his palm. Even if he hadn't used his full strength, it was still a high-level life and death realm expert. Even if he hadn't used his full strength, it was still a high-level life and death realm expert's palm. Similarly, only high-level life and death realm experts could resist it. Even the Azure Sea Reverse couldn't underestimate such an expert. Which expert are you? Please show yourself for a chat. The Azure Sea Reverse didn't care about these peak saints. If he encountered any resistance, he would just kill them. However, he couldn't do the same to a high-level life and death realm expert. He could only negotiate. Show yourself for a chat? Azure Sea Reverse? You think you're worthy? You dare to injure my friend? It seems like you're courting death. Chapter 554. An incomparably arrogant voice suddenly came from the sky. From the tone of this voice, it was as if he didn't put Kanglin and I, a high-level life and death expert, in his eyes. This incomparably arrogant voice belonged to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian didn't care about the life and death of others, but he owed Bai Xian a great debt of gratitude. Naturally, he wouldn't sit by and watch. Chu Fengmian? Bai Xian's expression immediately turned into pleasant surprise. This voice was incomparably familiar to her, Chu Fengmian's voice. Originally, when Chu Fengmian was being chased by undying demon Venerable, Bai Xian thought that Chu Fengmian was dead for sure. Who would have thought that Chu Fengmian would actually survive? He could even survive the undying demon Venerable. However, in the next moment, Bai Xian's heart became incomparably anxious. Chu Fengmian was now facing Kanglin and I. Kanglin Ni's character was originally arrogant to the extreme. Once a conflict broke out, there was no possibility of a good ending. Especially Kanglin and I, who was a high-level life and death expert. In this ancient Dragon Emperor cave, he was almost invincible. Now that Chu Fengmian was facing Kanglin and I, his odds were stacked against him. It wasn't just Bai Xian. Hearing this, the expressions of the countless cultivators present became extremely interesting, and the atmosphere immediately became lively. Who was Kanglin and I? An elder of Kanglin family. Kanglin family was the #1 martial arts family in the North region. Martial arts families had tens of millions of years of inheritance. Their foundation was shockingly deep. Even North Sea Academy wouldn't easily start a conflict with Kanglin family. Now, the voice that suddenly rang out was actually mocking Kanglin, defying. Countless people didn't expect that someone would suddenly appear to disrupt the situation. Kanglin Ni's expression instantly turned gloomy after hearing this. His eyes were filled with killing intent, as if he wanted to kill someone. With his status, no one had ever dared to speak to him like this. They actually dared to say that he wasn't worthy. He gave them face, but was kicked back. This was simply an endless humiliation. Sire, aren't your words a bit too arrogant? Since you don't want to give me, Kanglin and I, face, I'll directly capture you. Acting mysteriously and playing tricks behind my back. Get out here! Kanglin and I roared angrily. He gathered his spiritual energy and turned it into a huge arm, grabbing at the air. He wanted to grab Chu Fengmian out of the void. Boom! However, when he reached deep into space, he found nothing. Instead, Chu Fengmian's voice sounded again. Rebel of Kanglin, you dare to be arrogant and rob with just this little bit of strength? Are all your Kanglin family members born as bandits? That brat Kanglin Ba has already died in the robbery. Now you want to court death too? Chu Fengmian laughed and said. His figure suddenly appeared in front of Bai Xian. With a wave of his hand, a surge of spiritual energy was injected into Bai Xian's body. The spiritual energy contained a bit of the Battle Dragon bloodline's power. Although it was unable to change Bai Xian's body, it was enough to heal her injuries. In an instant, the injuries on Bai Xian's body were completely healed. Her strength was even much stronger than before. This is? Bai Xian was extremely surprised. Her injuries were not serious, but they were not light either. It would take at least 1 or 2 months for her to fully recover. However, in Chu Fengmian's hands, she could recover in an instant. What surprised her even more was that Chu Fengmian's aura was even more unfathomable than the last time she saw him. Even Bai Xian could not tell what level Chu Fengmian's strength had reached. Bar! You killed him? Rebel of Kanglin's eyes widened when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. Kanglin Ba was the Kanglin family's genius and Rebel of Kanglin's son. Rebel of Kanglin naturally knew about Kanglin Ba's death. He had been searching frantically in Dragon Emperor Yan's cave abode, trying to find Kanglin Ba's killer. Now that he heard Chu Fengmian's words, the anger in his heart exploded. His face turned red and he unleashed all his martial skills. "Give me your life. I'll use your head as a sacrifice to Baer." As he spoke, Rebel of Kanglin's martial skills were completely condensed. Spiritual energy surrounded his body, making him look as dazzling as the sun. This extremely powerful martial skill was enough to suppress the majority of the people present, making them unable to make a move. He waved his hand, causing the entire void to tremble. A palm fell. This palm contained the mysteries of martial skills, fully displaying the Kanglin family's martial skills. What a terrifying martial skill! Is this the martial Dao of the Kanglin family, a 10,000-year martial Dao aristocratic family? Rebel of Kanglin's strength has already reached the high level of life and death realm. His martial skills are terrifying to the extreme. Such a person is simply invincible. This kid is only at the 9th level of divine power realm. How dare he challenge Rebel of Kanglin? He's courting death. After seeing Chu Fengmian's cultivation realm, the sovereigns shook their heads. They originally thought that Chu Fengmian would be at least at the high level of life and death realm, which was why he dared to challenge Rebel of Kanglin. However, Chu Fengmian was only at the 9th level of divine power realm. Such a person, no matter how monstrous his talent was, defeating a 4th or 5th level life and death realm expert was already his limit. Being arrogant with strength could be said to be arrogant, but being arrogant without strength was just courting death. The 6th level of life and death realm was already at the high level of life and death realm. This was a completely different level of strength. It wasn't something a divine power realm expert could shake. Be careful. Kanglin family's martial skills are based on strength. You can't take it head-on. Bai Xian warned. She could see that Chu Fengmian had encountered many fortuitous encounters in Dragon Emperor Yan's cave, and his strength had advanced by another step. However, Rebel of Kanglin was a high-level life and death realm expert after all. Such a person wasn't someone a divine power realm expert could shake. Not many of the North Sea Academy's seed disciples could do it. Only those in the top 10 of the Sky ranking could do it. However, such people were only legends. Only those who had bitterly cultivated at the 9th level of divine power realm for hundreds or thousands of years could reach this step. Chu Fengmian looked like he had just reached the 9th level of divine power realm and hadn't accumulated enough strength yet. How could he reach this step? Bai Xian believed in Chu Fengmian's strength. However, after seeing Rebel of Kanglin make a move, she could only sigh, as if she could already see the outcome. All eyes were on Chu Fengmian. They wanted to see how an arrogant junior like Chu Fengmian would be killed by Rebel of Kanglin. 4 chapters for today. My writing is too bad. I've already written until 2 in the morning. I'll be in a good state tomorrow. Chapter 555. Under everyone's gaze, the Azure Sea Reversal's palm ruthlessly landed on Chu Fengmian's body. The power contained within this palm was the purest form of martial Dao without any fancy techniques. Thump! The moment the palm landed, the power of the surrounding heaven and earth was mobilized. This martial Dao was enough to communicate with heaven's will. The martial Dao within this palm had reached the pinnacle of mystery. The Azure Sea Reversal's martial Dao had reached the pinnacle. Oh! It's enough to mobilize heaven and earth. This martial Dao can be considered to have reached greater completion. Chu Fengmian raised his head and looked at the incoming palm. Chu Fengmian's expression was calm to the extreme as he faintly opened his mouth. Unfortunately, you're courting death. You dare to be impudent in front of me with this martial Dao? Laughable. Chu Fengmian let out a long roar and moved his body. Chu Fengmian didn't use any sword Dao. Instead, he condensed countless spiritual energy in his palm and similarly struck out with a palm. He planned to use the same palm technique to resist the Azure Sea Reversal. Is this kid crazy? Is he trying to fight the Kanglin family with brute force? A spectator couldn't help but speak. He looked at Chu Fengmian and shook his head as if he was looking at a dead man. The Kanglin family's strongest point was martial Dao. There were countless ways to deal with the Kanglin family, but Chu Fengmian chose the most foolish way. Fighting with brute force against the Kanglan family was simply courting death. Even some high-level life and death realm cultivators wouldn't dare to fight against the Azure Sea reversal. How could Chu Fengmian, who hadn't even stepped into the life and death realm, do it? Rumble. The two forces collided in the air. The sound of the explosion was deafening. Countless spiritual energy wantonly engulfed Chu Fengmian and the Azure Sea reversal. "This kid is definitely going to die," a martial Dao expert said. One of the venerables said. However, in the next moment, a dragon's roar resounded in the sky. Chu Fengmian's palm directly turned into an incomparably huge ancient war dragon and roared. The Kanglan reverse, which contained the essence of martial arts, was actually directly shattered by the ancient war dragon. That was not the end of it. The primordial war dragon was like a whirlwind. After devouring countless martial arts energy, it charged towards the Kanglan inverse. At this moment, the situation was completely reversed. How is this possible? He actually lost to the Azure Sea defying palm head-on. Impossible. Impossible. The Azure Tide reversal is a high-level life and death realm expert, while this guy is merely at the peak of the divine force realm. How can he possibly fight against the Azure Tide reversal? The eyes of the martial highness realm cultivators almost fell out from their sockets as they discussed among themselves. In their opinion, this was a battle without any suspense. They had just exchanged blows, and the Azure Tide defying sword had actually fallen into a disadvantageous position. Being suppressed by a divine force realm cultivator in a head-on confrontation was simply unbelievable. This was something that shocked everyone present. Even the Azure Tide defying sword himself could not imagine such an outcome. His face was filled with shock as he took a few steps back before he calmed down. What a brat! It seems like you possess the bloodline of the dragon tribe. Your strength is incomparable. No wonder you dare to be so presumptuous in front of me. That's right. Today, I will tell you that the power of bloodline is just an external object. Martial arts is the only truth. The Azure Tide defying sword's eyes were filled with deep killing intent. He was thoroughly enraged. From his body, the martial arts energy that was countless times stronger than before was fully displayed. 7 forms of the god of war. Bang! 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 The Azure Tide defying sword threw out a total of 7 punches, which turned into 7 blazing suns that contained boundless and terrifying martial arts energy. At the same time, they bombarded towards Chu Fengmian. The 7 forms of the god of war was the ultimate technique of the Kanglan family. Now that the Azure Tide defying sword had used this move, he did not intend to give Chu Fengmian any chance to retaliate. He wanted to thoroughly defeat Chu Fengmian with this move. The Azure Tide Tyrannical had also used this move before. However, the Azure Tide Tyrannical couldn't compare to the 7 forms of the god of war used by the Azure Tide defying sword. The blazing suns condensed by the Azure Tide Tyrannical were like sparks. However, the Azure Tide defying sword condensed true blazing suns. This move could only be used by high-level life and death realm experts. Rumble. The appearance of the 7 blazing suns caused the space to tremble. Countless spectators retreated one after another, hastily dodging. Under this frightening power, if anyone was careless and got caught in it, even the slightest aftershock would be enough to destroy them. You're called Chu Fengmian. Very good. There hasn't been a youngster who dared to be as arrogant as you, daring to provoke our Kanglan family. Even the North Sea Academy behind you can't protect you. Today, I'll kill you and let others see the price of provoking our Kanglan family. The Azure Tide defying sword furiously roared as a fist suddenly descended from the sky. What followed was the descent of the 7 blazing suns. 7 blazing suns descended from the sky, erupting with power that was 10 times stronger than the Azure Tide defying sword's palm. You want to kill me? You don't have the qualifications. Kanglan family? Since you dared to provoke me, there's no need for the Kanglan family to continue existing. One day, I'll destroy the Kanglan family. As for you, Azure Tide defying sword, I'll kill you today. I'll let you accompany your son. Chu Fengmian laughed. Facing the descent of the 7 blazing suns, there wasn't the slightest bit of nervousness on his face. His body suddenly enlarged, turning into an incomparably huge primordial battle dragon, soaring into the sky. Facing the 7 blazing suns, Chu Fengmian, who had transformed into an primordial battle dragon, suddenly waved his hand. An incomparably huge battle dragon claw descended from the sky. "Break for me!" Peng! The 7 blazing suns were smashed into pieces by the battle dragon claw without any suspense. The 7 blazing suns were all shattered, and the backlash made the azure tide defying sword continuously retreat. His eyes were filled with disbelief. This was their Kanglan family's secret technique, a supreme killing move. Yet, it was easily neutralized by Chu Fengmian. He wanted to counterattack, but in the next moment, the incomparably huge battle dragon claw had already bombarded the azure tide defying sword's body. "No!" The azure tide defying sword cried out in alarm. He could already feel that the battle dragon claw's power had completely surpassed his. He could already feel that his death was approaching. "Stop! You dare, you bastard!" 2 figures suddenly rushed out from the crowd of the 3 forces. These 2 figures were white-haired old men. Their strength had actually reached the high level of life and death realm, which was extremely close to the azure tide defying sword. Chapter 556. It's Feng family's Feng Qianyan and Burning Sky Sect's Fen Tianjue. Some martial artists recognized the 2 old men who suddenly appeared and said aloud. These 2 are also big shots of the Feng family and Burning Sky Sect. They actually appeared. This person is in trouble. 2 more high-level life and death realm experts have actually made their move. Originally, when Chu Fengmian was dealing with the azure water repulsion, he already had the upper hand. However, right at that moment, 2 more figures rushed out and attacked Chu Fengmian. Burning Sky Flame. 1,000 Miles Wind Kill. Feng Qianyan and Fen Tianjue attacked almost at the same time. 2 forces bombarded Chu Fengmian, wanting to help the azure water repulsion resist Chu Fengmian's battle dragon claw. 3 high-level life and death realm experts attacked at the same time. In everyone's eyes, this was simply an unimaginable scene. Especially Chu Fengmian, who was only a divine power realm martial artist. To be able to defeat the azure water repulsion and force 3 high-level life and death realm experts to attack him at the same time. This was already enough to be called a supreme glory. However, this was already the limit. In everyone's eyes, Chu Fengmian had to stop this time. If he didn't, he would have to face the joint attack of 3 high-level life and death realm martial artists. However, in the next moment, Chu Fengmian's action stunned countless people. Chu Fengmian raised his eyebrows. Seeing Feng Qianyan and Fen Tianjue's joint attack, his expression didn't change at all. There was even disdain in Chu Fengmian's eyes. "You too, do you think you can contend against me by joining hands? Today, however many of you come, you will all die." Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. In his body, all 12,960 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence were activated. The patterns on the battle dragon claw suddenly condensed, and its power increased explosively. It was countless times stronger than before. "All of you, die for me." The war dragon's claw slashed down mercilessly. The might of this claw made everyone feel as though they could see the ancient war dragon in the ancient times. Who would lead you to command the heavens and earth? It was as if a claw suddenly appeared from the long river of history. The strength of Feng Qianyan and Fen Tianjue, in front of the battle dragon's claw, seemed to have become incomparably weak. The spiritual energy that the 2 of them had gathered was instantly crushed by the battle dragon's claw. In terms of strength, they weren't even on the same level. Boom! Without any hesitation, the massive war dragon claw blasted towards the 3 of them. The body of the Kanglan rebel was instantly smashed into smithereens. Only some blood mist was directly swallowed by Chu Fengmian, quietly turning into a new crystal in Chu Fengmian's hand. This is Feng Qianyan and Fen Tianjue, at the last moment, urged their spiritual energy to escape without caring about anything else. Otherwise, the two of them would have been instantly killed by the battle dragon claw. The entire place was silent. The death of the Kanglen rebel had set off waves of shock in the hearts of countless people. The deep-sea rebel had actually fallen just like that. He had died under the claws of the war dragon. No matter who it was, no one would have thought that the Kanglen rebel would actually die, and even die in the hands of a divine power realm martial artist. Countless martial artists looked at Chu Fengmian as if they were looking at a monster. Just now, Feng Qianyan and Fen Tianjue had joined forces, but they couldn't resist Chu Fengmian's war dragon claw. Fighting against 3 high-level life and death experts at the same time was actually enough to kill the Kanglen rebel. Was this really something that a divine power realm martial artist could do? Countless martial artists had doubts in their hearts. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, none of them would have dared to believe the scene in front of them. Why is this kid's strength so terrifying? Feng Qianyan and Fen Tianjue were both stunned. They were incomparably shocked. Just now, when they fought with Chu Fengmian, they naturally felt the power of Chu Fengmian's war dragon claw. This power was simply unstoppable. It could even be said that it was enough to destroy everything. In front of this power, the two of them were as weak as ants. They didn't even have the chance to save the Kanglen rebel. It wasn't easy to keep their lives. For a divine power realm martial artist to be able to do this, there was only one possibility. This kid must have obtained the treasures of ancient Dragon Emperor Yan's cave, or even the inheritance of ancient Dragon Emperor Yan. His martial skills are no longer ordinary martial skills of the Dragon Clan. They have even surpassed the martial skills of many Dragon Kings. Yes, this is the only possibility for him to have such a terrifying power. The treasures of ancient Dragon Emperor Yan's cave were actually obtained by such a kid. But it's also good. A kid without any background. Let's go out and contact the family. It's enough to summon experts to completely suppress him and seize his treasures. Feng Qianyan and Fen Tianjue both glanced at each other and understood from each other's eyes. Leave quickly. Wait for us to summon experts from the family. We'll join forces to completely suppress this person. Without hesitation, the two figures turned into 2 streaks of light and suddenly fled outside. Chu Fengmian's strength was too strong. The two of them couldn't deal with him. Right now, they could only escape. When the family experts arrived, it would be the end of Chu Fengmian. You want to escape now? It's too late. Since the two of you dared to make a move, your fall is destined. Chu Fengmian sneered. Now that his news had spread, Chu Fengmian wasn't afraid at all. The current Chu Fengmian, unless it was those old antiques, it was impossible to kill Chu Fengmian. However, these two people had already committed a capital crime when they wanted to deal with Chu Fengmian. How could they escape now? Get the hell back here. Looking at the 2 streaks of light in the distance, Chu Fengmian grabbed with both hands. 2 incomparably huge spiritual arms directly broke through the space and went deep into the void. In an instant, they appeared in front of the 2 streaks of light and grabbed Feng Qianyan and Fen Tianjue. Die for me. Chu Fengmian clenched his fist, and Feng Qianyan and Fen Tianjue were directly crushed by Chu Fengmian. Among them, a pure blood mist was directly devoured by Chu Fengmian. Their empty rings were also obtained by Chu Fengmian. There were hundreds of treasures in the 2's empty rings. It seemed that they also had a great harvest in Dragon Emperor Yan Gu's cave. Now, all of them belonged to Chu Fengmian. With my strength, even if I don't use the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword, dealing with ordinary high-level life and death realm martial artists is no problem. If I use the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword, even facing an outstanding high-level life and death realm expert like Undying Demon Venerable, it's enough to kill him. Chu Fengmian's face revealed a trace of a smile. He was extremely satisfied with his current strength. Chapter 557. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, he could be considered a big shot in the North region. If Chu Fengmian was willing, he could return to the North Sea Academy and display his strength. It would be enough for him to become a seed disciple, or even a core disciple. The 7 great sects are one step closer to revenge. killing intent appeared in Chu Fengmian's eyes. The stronger he was, the more Chu Fengmian's killing intent surged. However, this strength was still not enough. There were many old antiques in the 7 great sects that had surpassed the life and death realm. Even in the North region, there were many old antiques that had surpassed the life and death realm. If these old antiques made a move, Chu Fengmian would lose without a doubt, and his life might even be in danger. His strength had to be stronger. What Chu Fengmian lacked now was accumulation. Once Chu Fengmian passed the life and death calamity and reached the life and death realm, then he would be able to move unhindered in the North region. However, with my current strength, I'm no longer powerless against the Lu family. After bullying me for so long, it's time for revenge. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a trace of coldness. He had been targeted countless times in the North Sea Academy. Previously, during the Outer Disciple exam, he had almost suffered a great loss because of the Lu family. Fortunately, Bai Xian had come and helped Chu Fengmian out. However, Chu Fengmian had never forgotten about this grudge. When he returned to the academy, it would be time for revenge. Not only the Lu family, but also Yi Tianjun, Yan Gu, and the others who dared to have designs on Han Yueli, Chu Fengmian would destroy these people sooner or later. When he returned to the academy, it was time for Chu Fengmian to reveal his true talent. Feng Qianyan, Fen Tianjue, these 2 big shots are dead. How powerful is this person? He can even kill a high-level life and death realm expert. Seems like another Yi Tianjun has risen in the North Sea Academy. Countless martial artists still hadn't recovered from their shock. Feng Qianyan, Fen Tianjue, and Kanglin Defying. These 3 were all high-level life and death realm experts. They had all heard of them. Today, they had fallen in front of them. No one could have imagined this result. Even Bai Xian didn't expect Chu Fengmian's strength to have reached such a level. When they were in the Beimang Academy, Chu Fengmian's strength was on par with hers. After Chu Fengmian stepped into the Divine Force realm, he had completely surpassed her. But now, Chu Fengmian's strength had advanced by leaps and bounds. He could even kill high-level life and death experts. That's too terrifying. That kind of strength is no longer human. Bai Xian thought with lingering fear. She was glad that she had a good relationship with Chu Fengmian. It would be a real nightmare if she had to make an enemy out of Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian couldn't be bothered to pay attention to what everyone was thinking. He looked at the restrictive spells that had been set up around Dragon Emperor Yan's cave abode. Break! Chu Fengmian indifferently spat out a word. The restrictions set up above began to shatter and collapse abruptly. The exit of Dragon Emperor Yan's cave dwelling was open once again. Let's go, let's go! Countless martial artists flew toward the exit. They had all made great gains in the ancient Yan Dragon Emperor cave abode, and no one wanted to stay any longer. They quickly left. Let's go too. The disciples of the 3 major factions exchanged glances with one another when they saw that the barrier had been broken. Then, they turned into beams of light and tried to leave the place. But just as they were about to leave the cave abode, a figure blocked their path. You can only leave if you hand over all your spatial rings. Chu Fengmian said coldly, looking at the disciples of the 3 major factions. The others could leave. But the people of the 3 major factions couldn't leave. What? You want us to hand over our spatial rings? Some of the disciples of the 3 major factions looked at Chu Fengmian and said angrily. The 3 major factions had a high status in the North region. At the very least, even the people of Beimang Academy didn't target them too much. They could rob others, but no one dared to rob them. Kid, you've gone too far. A fearless disciple seemed to be as arrogant as usual as he said to Chu Fengmian. But the moment he opened his mouth, his voice came to an abrupt halt. A spiritual energy had already bombarded his body, and he was instantly killed on the spot. His spatial ring also fell into Chu Fengmian's hands. Those who disobey will die. Seeing that Chu Fengmian had killed this person, many people of the 3 major factions slowly came to their senses. Chu Fengmian wasn't the kind of person they usually met. He wouldn't be frightened by the reputation of the three major factions to the point of not daring to attack. Even big shots like Kanglin and Feng Qianli, and Fen Tianjue had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. What did these people count for? Hand it over. I'll hand it over. The disciples of the three major factions hesitated for a moment, then took out their spatial rings and threw them over. Chu Fengmian took it and nodded, allowing them to leave. But most of the disciples of the three major factions were still unwilling to hand over their spatial rings. These spatial rings contained all their treasures. No one was willing to hand it over for free. Damn it. I don't believe that he can kill all of us alone. Run. It's good that one of us can escape. He's just one person. Yes, we can escape. Why should we listen to him? The disciples of the three major factions looked at each other, then suddenly turned into countless streaks of light and rushed out. These streaks of light were extremely scattered, as if they wanted to make Chu Fengmian unable to stop them. You're courting death. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. He had already given these disciples of the three major factions a chance. Since they didn't know how to cherish it. That would be courting death. All of you, die. Chu Fengmian activated his spiritual energy and waved his hand. The countless streaks of light suddenly exploded in the air. Under Chu Fengmian's spiritual power, the disciples of the three major powers exploded one after another and died on the spot. In just an instant, all the disciples of the three major factions became dead people and directly turned into ashes, leaving nothing behind. And in Chu Fengmian's hand, there were countless spatial rings. Even if Chu Fengmian had the Blood Sea and was extremely rich, who would think that he had more wealth? Since these people of the three major factions were willing to give him money, Chu Fengmian naturally had to accept it. Let's go. Chu Fengmian glanced at Bai Xian and moved his body. The two of them moved and directly left the cave of Dragon Emperor Yan. Chapter 558. Disorderly Burial Sea. The disorderly burial sea was originally extremely dangerous. There were countless void beasts that formed groups and attacked cultivators. However, it was different today. There were no signs of void beasts in the disorderly burial sea. Instead, countless experts were shuttling through the sea. Countless void beasts seemed to have been killed by someone. This time, the North region is in an uproar. I wonder how many experts have benefited from it. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian were shuttling through the disorderly burial sea. Chu Fengmian was aware of the changes in the disorderly burial sea. The ancient Dragon Emperor cave dwelling was not the only cave dwelling that had been opened in the disorderly burial sea. There were 6 cave dwellings that had been opened in a row. 6 ancient cave dwellings had appeared in the disorderly burial sea at the same time, attracting countless geniuses from the North region and even the entire 9 regions to gather here. That was why the disorderly burial sea had become so lively. You're the one who benefited the most. When you return to the North Sea Academy, you won't even need to be promoted to an inner disciple. You can be promoted to a seed disciple directly. Bai Xian looked at Chu Fengmian and said with a smile. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, he would be an influential figure when he returned to the North Sea Academy. Once he was promoted to a seed disciple, he would become a core member of the North Sea Academy. He would be able to enter the North Sea secret realm and receive countless benefits. Chu Fengmian's strength had already reached such a level without the resources of the Northern Sea Academy. Once Chu Fengmian entered the Northern Sea secret realm to cultivate, his strength would most likely take another step forward and become even more terrifying. Bai Xian, you've also benefited a lot from the cave dwelling. When you return, you'll be promoted to a seed disciple. Chu Fengmian looked at Bai Xian and said with a smile. Bai Xian's strength had reached the limit of the divine power realm in the ancient Dragon Emperor cave dwelling. She had benefited a lot from it. Now, she was even stronger than the former number 1 on the Earth ranking, Luo Chanhen. She had benefited a lot from it. That's right. It's all thanks to you that I've benefited so much. Bai Xian said with a sigh. She had invited Chu Fengmian to explore Dragon Monarch Yan's cave. It was a win-win situation for both of them. As for Sikong Xian, who had truly obtained the ancient dragon Emperor Yan cave dwelling, he had perished because he had schemed against Chu Fengmian. Let's go, Chu Fengmian. Let's leave the chaotic burial sea first. It's a chaotic place right now and there are countless cultivators killing other cultivators in order to collect benefits. Bai Xian cautiously glanced around as she spoke. Oh? Hearing this, Chu Fengmian spread out his spiritual awareness to investigate the disorderly burial sea. Sure enough, he saw a few martial artists intercepting and killing some martial artists who had just left the cave abode. These people did not enter the ancient cave abode to search for the treasure. Instead, they were waiting outside the ancient cave abode to ambush the others. Although the reward was not much, the risk was extremely low. Don't worry, they're just some despicable people. If they dare to come, I'll kill them. Chu Fengmian smiled and said. Let's go. Let's leave the disorderly burial sea first. As he spoke, Chu Fengmian turned into a ray of light and flew out. Bai Xian did the same and followed beside him. The disorderly burial sea was extremely huge. Although the two of them were extremely fast, it still took some time for them to reach the disorderly burial sea. We've obtained countless benefits from the ancient dragon Emperor Yan cave abode. It's not a wise choice to return to the North Sea Academy now. Why don't we take this opportunity to go to the Void Sea Cucumber Trade Fair first? Bai Xian and Chu Fengmian conversed as they flew. Bai Xian said. We've obtained countless rare items. However, some of them are actually not suitable for us. We can exchange for rare items that are suitable for us at the trade fair. Although mystical items were extremely valuable, not every mystical item was useful. For example, the rare items that Chu Fengmian needed to cultivate the battle dragon skill were naturally related to the dragon tribe. As for other rare items, they were not very useful to Chu Fengmian. Therefore, generally speaking, it was best to exchange for rare items that were most suitable for oneself. Now that so many ancient cave abodes had opened in the disorderly burial sea, there would be countless rare items within. This was the best opportunity to purchase rare items. Chu Fengmian had a huge fortune now, so he needed to purchase rare items to increase his strength. Chu Fengmian thought for a moment and nodded. All right. Chu Fengmian had the Blood Sea and was extremely wealthy. Although his strength had reached the limit, some rare items could still increase his battle strength. For example, strengthening his body, increasing his bloodline, and so on. Although they did not increase his strength, they were enough to increase his strength. Before crossing the great calamity of life and death, it was best to accumulate as much as possible. Just as Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian were conversing in the void, several rays of light suddenly appeared in the surroundings. There were a total of 5 people. The moment they appeared, they immediately condensed their spiritual power and sealed the surrounding space. You too, I don't think you should go to the trade fair. Why don't you give me all the rare items you have? The 5 were middle-aged men, and each of them had reached the 3rd level of life and death realm. They were much stronger than the geniuses of many large factions. These 5 are the Void 5 Tyrants. They are the experts of the Void Ocean, and they kill martial artists every day. With the 5 of them working together, unless one is at the high level of life and death realm, few can escape from their hands. When Bai Xian saw the 5 of them, fear appeared on her face. Clearly, she knew who they were. However, Bai Xian did not panic. She was clear about Chu Fengmian's strength. Although the Void 5 Tyrants were powerful, they were far from being Chu Fengmian's match. Hearing Bai Xian's words, one of the Void 5 Tyrants laughed and said, Oh? Seems like you still know about the reputation of us Void 5 Tyrants. Good. Obediently hand over your spatial ring and all your spiritual tools, and I'll spare your lives. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. Void 5 Tyrants? So it's 5 trash who kill martial artists in the Void Ocean. Since you've met me today, I'll kill you. It can be considered as removing a scourge for the Void Ocean. You! Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the Void 5 Tyrants coldly said. Since you refuse a toast, I'll drink a forfeit. If you don't hand over your spatial ring, I'll take it myself. One of the Void 5 tyrants suddenly punched at Chu Fengmian. However, before he could punch out, Chu Fengmian's hand had already moved. A palm shot out of thin air. The Void 5 tyrants were all sent flying, each of them vomiting blood. Chapter 559. The Void 5 tyrants were sent flying by Chu Fengmian's palm. Their eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. When the 5 of them joined hands, they could kill anyone unless they were facing a high-level life and death expert. But now, under Chu Fengmian's palm, they couldn't resist at all and were sent flying. With your strength, how is this possible? Nothing is impossible. Die, you bastards. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. Before him, the Void 5 tyrants were no different from ants. Just as Chu Fengmian was about to crush the Void 5 tyrants, Bai Xian suddenly spoke. Chu Fengmian, leave their corpses intact. After hearing Bai Xian's words, Chu Fengmian nodded his head and killed the 5 cultivators with a single slap. However, he did not destroy their bodies, but simply shattered their souls with a mystical technique. Bai Xian came to the side of the Void 5 tyrants and opened a spatial ring. She stored the bodies of the Void 5 tyrants into it before speaking to Chu Fengmian. There's a bounty for the Void 5 tyrants in the Void Ocean. It's not cheap. You can exchange their bodies for wealth. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and the spatial rings of the Void 5 tyrants fell into his hand. He poured his spiritual power into the rings and opened them. Who knew how many martial artists these Void 5 tyrants had killed? The amount of wealth he had on him was frightening. He even had quite a number of royal-grade spirit stones and other treasures. Inside the spatial ring, there was a thumb-sized fragment that attracted Chu Fengmian's attention. This is... Seeing this thumb-sized fragment, Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. He held the fragment in his hand, and a familiar energy immediately entered his body. Sure enough, it's a fragment of the Emperor Jar. Chu Fengmian was ecstatic. This thumb-sized fragment was actually a fragment of the Emperor Jar. Although this was only a fragment and a very small part of it, every fragment that was integrated into the Emperor's Jar would produce an unparalleled effect. Good. The fragments of the Emperor Jar have been scattered throughout the northern region and even the 9 regions. I didn't expect to find another one today. Could it be that I really have a chance to collect all the fragments of the Emperor Jar and reassemble them? That's right. Chu Fengmian was astonished. The fragments of the Emperor Jar were scattered in every corner of the 9 regions. It was extremely difficult for ordinary people to find even one of them. Chu Fengmian had already found the 3rd fragment. This was no longer something that could be described as luck. It could only be said that the Emperor Jar was destined to be with Chu Fengmian. The Emperor Jar's current state were only slightly stronger than a heaven spirit artifact. However, if all the fragments of the Emperor's Jar could be found and combined, the power of an extreme immortal weapon would be enough to make the entire 9 zones tremble. Even the 7 great sects did not have a complete extreme Dao immortal weapon. The appearance of a complete extreme Dao immortal weapon was enough to change the situation of the 9 regions. First, fused the fragment fused. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and the Emperor Jar appeared in his hand. After sensing the power of the Emperor Jar, the fragment flew directly into the jar. In the blink of an eye, they fused with the Emperor Jar. One of the missing fragments disappeared, and the inscriptions on the jar became more complete. There are a total of 9 fragments of the Emperor's Jar. I have already found the 2 largest fragments. However, whether I can find the rest depends on my luck. After absorbing the shard, Chu Fengmian's understanding of the mortal Emperor Jar deepened, and he realized that the jar had been broken into 9 pieces. Chu Fengmian had found 3 of them. The remaining 6 fragments were scattered in every corner of the 9 regions. Every time I find a fragment of the Emperor Jar, a part of its true power will be awakened, and its power will increase a lot. Chu Fengmian felt that the Emperor Jar's power had increased a lot. As long as he obtained more fragments of the Emperor's Jar, the power of the Emperor's Jar would be fully unleashed. The Emperor Jar's power will be restored. It's enough to make my trump card stronger. Chu Fengmian heaved a sigh of relief and put the Emperor Jar away. Let's go. Let's leave for the Void Ocean, Chu Fengmian said to Bai Xian. The two figures turned into rays of light and set off. They left the disorderly burial sea and returned to the Void Ocean. In the Void Ocean, there were countless gathering places like the Starry Sky Peak. However, the largest one was the Primordial Chaos Continent, which was located at the center of the Void Ocean. The Primordial Chaos Continent was no longer a rock. It was an incomparably huge continent. It was like an independent space in the Void Ocean. It was the safest place in the Void Ocean. There were countless shops and even a few forces that operated there. Countless warriors would come to the Primordial Chaos Continent to buy and sell rare items and trade with each other. Some warriors even stayed in the Primordial Chaos Continent. After all, there were countless opportunities in the Void Ocean. It was the best place to cultivate. Bai Xian led Chu Fengmian and flew in the Void Ocean. Not long after, an incomparably huge continent came into view in front of them. This is the Primordial Chaos Continent? In such a dangerous place like the Void Ocean, how could there be such an area? This incomparably huge continent was much larger than many of the countries in the northern region. The void turbulence in the Void Ocean was such that even a pinnacle saint warrior would have to use his spiritual power to resist the void turbulence at all times. Chu Fengmian was surprised that such a huge continent could survive in the Void Ocean. This Primordial Chaos Continent seems to have been created by an almighty. Chu Fengmian glanced at the Primordial Chaos Continent and noticed that there were countless traces of artificial creation on the continent. To think that such a huge continent was actually created by humans. The expert who created the Primordial Chaos Continent with such strength was probably at the peak of the 9 regions. He was at the same level as Dragon Emperor Yan. Let's land first, Bai Xian said to Chu Fengmian. She brought Chu Fengmian down slowly from the Void Ocean and landed on the Primordial Chaos Continent. The Primordial Chaos Continent was the same as the countless colonies in the Void Sea. One had to pay a fee in order to enter. Bai Xian casually handed over some rare items of extremely low value and brought Chu Fengmian directly to the Primordial Chaos Continent. 5 chapters. Add one more. As long as I'm in a good state, I'll add as much as I can. Chapter 560. After paying the fee, Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian stepped into the Primal Chaos Continent. As soon as they entered the Primal Chaos Continent, Chu Fengmian felt that the most terrifying void turbulence in the Void Ocean was nowhere to be found. If the Starry Sky Peak was like a small boat floating in the sea, then the Primordial Chaos Continent was like an island that was incomparably stable. The Void Ocean was incomparably stable, and they couldn't feel the slightest threat from the outside. It was as if the Primal Chaos Continent wasn't in the dangerous Void Ocean, but a country in the northern region. There were countless chambers of commerce and countless experts walking around. Most of them were at the 9th level of the Divine Power Realm. Although some of them weren't as strong as Luo Zhanhen, they weren't too far off from Bai Xian. However, those at the level of Luo Zhanhen and Kanglin Ba were much rarer. It was hard to find one in 1,000 people. Such people were absolute geniuses no matter where they were. There are many lone wolves in the Void Ocean. They are extremely talented, but they are unwilling to join any forces. They have been searching for resources in the Void Ocean, and their fortuitous encounters are enough to support their cultivation. Bai Xian looked at some familiar faces and explained to Chu Fengmian. These people are lawless and not easy to deal with. It's better not to provoke them. However, after saying those words, Bai Xian suddenly realized that Chu Fengmian, who was by her side, was the true lawless person. He dared to kill the disciples of the 7 major sections. He was the real lawless person. Whoever dared to provoke Chu Fengmian was courting death. There are tens of millions of chambers of commerce in the Primal Chaos Continent. They come from various forces. Even the forces of the other regions have established chambers of commerce in the Primal Chaos Continent. Bai Xian pointed at the numerous chambers of commerce and said. So, you can choose carefully if you want to buy anything. But we can go to the Heavenly Chamber of Commerce first. The bounty for the Void 5 Tyrants was set by them. Qi Origin Tower, 1,000 Weapons Pavilion, 1,000 Treasures Tower. Chu Fengmian looked around and saw many familiar signs. There were many chambers of commerce in the Primal Chaos continent that were famous in the 9 regions. Some of them were inextricably linked to the 7 major sects. The Primordial Chaos continent could be considered one of the most prosperous regions in the northern region. However, the Primordial Chaos continent was, after all, the largest gathering place in the Void Ocean. It was a place that all warriors who came to the Void Ocean had to pass through. With so many experts coming and going, it was naturally enough to create such a bustling place. Let's go. Let's go to Heavenly Trade Association first. Chu Fengmian nodded. The Heavenly Chamber of Commerce was a large chamber of commerce that had branches throughout the 9 regions. If one wanted to purchase the required wealth, they could do so in the Heavenly Chamber of Commerce. As they spoke, the two of them walked on the Primal Chaos continent. The Primal Chaos continent was under a restriction that prevented flight. However, with their strength, it was easy for them to shrink the land into an inch. After a few minutes, Bai Xian and Chu Fengmian arrived in front of an incomparably huge chamber of commerce. Although it was called a chamber of commerce, at a glance, it looked more like an incomparably huge city, incomparably prosperous. In the Primordial Chaos continent, each chamber of commerce was an incomparably huge city, like each sect. However, it was rare to see a chamber of commerce as large as the Heavenly Chamber of Commerce. In front of the city, there was a huge signboard with the words Heavenly Chamber of Commerce written on it. Chu Fengmian could sense a trace of mystery in the 2 words. It was definitely carved by a powerful existence that had almost transcended life and death. Countless martial artists came and went from the city. Most of them were at the pinnacle of the Saint Realm, but there were also martial artists who had not reached the pinnacle of the Saint Realm. Oh? How did these warriors without the strength of a peak saint come to the Primordial Chaos continent? Chu Fengmian asked with some surprise. The Primordial Chaos continent was located in the Void Ocean. Without the strength of a peak saint, it was impossible to come to the Primordial Chaos continent. Some experts could indeed help people withstand the turbulence of the void and bring in some juniors. However, there were also many warriors who had not reached the peak saint level on the Primordial Chaos continent. These people did not come from outside. They originally lived on the Primordial Chaos continent. Bai Xian smiled when she heard Chu Fengmian's confusion. There were originally some natives on the Primordial Chaos continent. These people have always lived on the Primordial Chaos continent, but if they have not reached the peak saint level, they will probably never be able to leave. However, there are many resources on the Primordial Chaos continent, so many of the warriors living there have the potential to reach the peak saint level. Let's go and take a look. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian walked into the city. Immediately, several warriors in front of the city gate came over to greet them. The strength of these few cultivators was around the 3rd level of the Divine Power Realm. Outside, even in the prosperous lands of the North region, they wouldn't be considered weak. However, in the Primordial Chaos continent, they could only be weaklings at the bottom. They worked for some forces. After all, most of the warriors who came to the Primordial Chaos continent had the strength of a peak saint. A female disciple who looked to be in her early 20s came over to greet them. Your Excellencies, are you here to buy something? Our Heavenly Chamber of Commerce has all kinds of treasures. We have natural wonders and king-grade spirit stones. May I know what you two are looking for? Take us to the mission hall first. We have completed the Heavenly Chamber of Commerce's bounty. Bai Xian said. After we complete the mission, we will go buy some things. Your Excellencies, please follow me. The female disciple respectfully nodded her head and courteously led Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian to a palace. Elderly, 2 of your Excellencies have completed the mission of the mission hall and have come to claim the bounty. The female disciple respectfully called out to the mission hall. An old man slowly walked out from the hall. This old man's strength was around the high level of the life and death realm. However, among the high-level life and death realm experts, he could only be considered ordinary. He was about the same level as Kanglin and I and the others, and was much weaker than the undying demon ancestor. Elderly sized up Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian and said, "You two have completed the mission. Take out the proof." Ping 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 ping, Bai Xian expressionlessly opened her spatial ring. Immediately, 5 corpses appeared on the ground. These 5 corpses belonged to life and death experts. They had been immortal for 1,000 years. Now that they appeared, their appearances were vivid and lifelike. "These are the Void 5 tyrants?" Elderly sized up the 5 corpses, and his eyes widened in disbelief. Chapter 561. The 5 corpses in front of him were the 5 Void Tyrants. Elderly naturally knew about the reputation of the 5 Void Tyrants. With his strength, he might not be able to kill the 5 of them even if they joined forces. These Void 5 Tyrants moved unhindered in the Void Ocean, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. They didn't dare to offend high-level life and death experts. Ordinary life and death realm martial artists were not their opponents. Trying to kill them would be extremely dangerous. They could be said to be extremely troublesome characters. Elderly didn't expect that someone would kill them today. Elderly carefully sized up Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian, and a trace of astonishment flickered in his eyes. 2 9th-level Divine Power Realm martial artists were actually able to kill the Void 5 Tyrants. This was enough to shock him. Chu Fengmian didn't pay attention to Elderly's probing. His strength wasn't something that Elderly could probe. Chu Fengmian calmly said, "Correct, they are the Void 5 Tyrants. The bounty for the Void 5 Tyrants was set by Sky Chamber of Commerce, right? These 5 corpses are here. Check them." "All right." Elderly's spiritual power entered the corpses of the Void 5 Tyrants. Immediately, the corpses shone with a peculiar radiance. Surges of spiritual energy gushed out. This energy came from the Void 5 Tyrants' power. For martial artists at Chu Fengmian's level, their appearance and age were already immeasurable. They could change their appearance at any time. The only thing that couldn't be changed was the cultivation method and power they cultivated. "Correct, they are the Void 5 Tyrants." Elderly withdrew his spiritual energy and nodded. With a wave of his hand, an empty ring appeared in his palm. He took out a jade box from the ring and handed it over. The bounty for the Void 5 Tyrants was set by the Dragon race. The reward is 5 Dragon Blood Saint King pellets. Chu Fengmian received the jade box and opened it. There was a total of 5 red medicinal pills the size of a longan. Every single one of them contained extremely pure blood aura. Among them, there was also a terrifying dragon's might. This dragon might didn't belong to an ordinary true dragon, but to the true dragon race's Dragon King. The Dragon Blood Saint King pill was a pill refined from the blood of a true dragon and a drop of the Dragon King's blood. It was dozens of times more effective than ordinary Dragon Blood Saint pills. The dragon race that offered this bounty sure is generous. 5 Dragon Blood Saint King pills are enough to strengthen my current body. My bloodline is the same as the ancient war dragons, but my body is far inferior. The ancient war dragon's strength lies not only in its bloodline. Even if I possess 10% of the ancient war dragon's bloodline, my true strength is far from 10% of the ancient war dragon's strength. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. He cultivated the battle dragon art. If he wanted to strengthen his body, the Dragon Blood Saint King pill refined from dragon blood was indeed a very good choice. It would be even better if I had Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets. If I had Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets refined from Dragon Emperor's blood, 5 of them would be enough to raise my body to the limit. However, he could only think about it. Chu Fengmian laughed at himself. The Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellet was a heaven-grade elixir. The Dragon Emperor was an existence that ruled over dragons. How could it be easy to refine Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets with his blood? However, other than the Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets, there were other elixirs that could strengthen a martial artist's body. Chu Fengmian could look for other elixirs to strengthen his body. Chu Fengmian thought as he kept the 5 Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets into his spatial ring. Wait! I want these Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets. A figure came to the mission hall and suddenly looked at the Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets in Chu Fengmian's hand. He then walked towards Chu Fengmian. This figure was a man that looked like he was in his 20s. His spiritual energy was extremely dense, and he was at the Divine Force Realm level 9. Judging from his aura, this man's strength should be on par with Luo Zhanhen. You two are the ones that killed the 5 Tyrants of the Void and obtained the Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets? The man looked at Chu Fengmian with disdain in his eyes. His tone was extremely tough, as if he was ordering them. I want these Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets. Name a price. Chu Fengmian glanced at the man and snorted coldly. You can't afford it. If this man had a proper conversation, Chu Fengmian might have spoken a few words with him. However, Chu Fengmian wouldn't give him any face when he was arrogant and bossy. Can't afford it? What a joke. Just a few Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets. Ouyang Wai, don't put them in my eyes. The man named Ouyang Wai sneered coldly. This Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellet is only sold for 1 King-grade spiritual stone outside. I'll give you 5 King-grade spiritual stones. Hand over the Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets. Ouyang Wai snorted coldly as he took out 5 King-grade spiritual stones from his spatial ring and threw them towards Chu Fengmian. Ouyang Wai? Bai Xian's expression changed slightly when she heard the name. She seemed to have understood who the man in front of her was and quietly said to Chu Fengmian. Ouyang Wai is one of the independent experts who roamed the Void Ocean. He's extremely strong and his strength isn't below Luo Zhanhen's. He even joined one of the major independent forces in the Void Ocean, the Heaven Alliance. He has a high position in the Void Ocean and is not easy to deal with. Is that so? Not easy to deal with? Chu Fengmian sneered. Facing the 5 King-grade spiritual stones that were thrown towards him, Chu Fengmian stood with his hands behind his back and dodged them. Thump! The 5 King-grade spiritual stones rolled on the ground and made a crisp sound. Brat, what do you mean by this? Ouyang Wai looked at Chu Fengmian and sneered. How dare you not take my spiritual stones? Are you courting death? I'll give you a chance. Kneel down and pick up my spiritual stones. Then, hand over the 5 Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets and I'll let you off this time. You want me to kneel down? Who do you think you are? Chu Fengmian sneered. You want to buy the Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets? Sure. 1 Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellet is worth 100 royal grade spiritual stones. That's a total of 500 Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets. Take them out and I'll sell them to you. Chu Fengmian's words were blunt. Since Ouyang Wai was so overbearing, Chu Fengmian naturally wouldn't be polite. The price of a Dragon Blood Saint King pill was about 1 King-grade spirit stone, and 1 royal-grade spirit stone could be exchanged for 100 King-grade spirit stones. Chu Fengmian's words were equivalent to raising the price of the Dragon Blood Saint Emperor pellets by 10,000 times. What? What did you say? Ouyang Wai was stunned when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. Then, his face was filled with killing intent. Chapter 562. 10,000 times the price. This was no longer an exorbitant price. Daring to offer such a price was simply not putting Ouyang Wai in his eyes. What? You don't understand human language? A Dragon Blood Saint King pellet and 100 Emperor-grade spirit stones. You're just a pauper. If you can't afford it, then scram. Chu Fengmian glanced at Ouyang Wai with disdain. It was as if Ouyang Wai was a pauper in Chu Fengmian's eyes. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of the surrounding cultivators froze. A 9th-level Divine Force Realm cultivator actually dared to speak to Ouyang Wai in such a manner? Who was Ouyang Wai? In the Void Ocean, he was one of the strongest Divine Force Realm cultivators. Although Chu Fengmian was also at the 9th level of the Divine Force Realm, Just like Ouyang, he was still at the 9th level. But even if they were both at the 9th level of the Divine Force realm, the difference in strength was incomparably huge. With Ouyang's strength, killing ordinary life and death realm cultivators wasn't a difficult matter. But now, dealing with a Divine Force realm cultivator was as easy as flipping his hand. Is this kid crazy? Look at his appearance, he's extremely unfamiliar. He should be a newcomer who just came to the Void Ocean. A newcomer who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth actually dares to provoke Ouyang. He's courting death. This kid is courting death. If Ouyang attacks, he'll be killed in a single move. Countless spectators discussed spiritedly. Who was Chu Fengmian? They had never seen him before. However, they had all heard of Ouyang's great name. In the Void Ocean, there were only a few Divine Force realm cultivators who could contend against Ouyang. How could an unknown kid contend against Ouyang? This kid's character is too arrogant. It's not a good thing to be so arrogant. But after all, this is a conflict in our Sky Chamber of Commerce. It's not good for there to be casualties. I'll take action after this kid is taught a lesson. Mission Hall's elderly shook his head as he looked at Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian were able to kill the 5 tyrants of the Void Ocean. They did have some strength, but it was far from enough to contend against Ouyang. Ha ha ha. All of a sudden, Ouyang burst into laughter. His laughter was so terrifying that it made one shudder. In the midst of his laughter, Ouyang's power instantly erupted. Surging waves of air caused countless people to step back and hurriedly dodge. A mere ant dares to demand an exorbitant price? It seems that I, Ouyang, have not fought for a long time. Many people have forgotten my dignity. Ouyang looked at Chu Fengmian, his eyes filled with killing intent. Although Ouyang's realm was still at the Divine Force realm, his strength had already surpassed the boundaries of the Divine Force realm. His strength was enough to contend against 4th-level life and death experts. Even many high-level life and death experts would be extremely polite when they saw him, as if they were on equal footing. After all, once Ouyang chose to cross the life and death calamity and step into high-level life and death realm, it would be a sure thing. In the primordial chaos continent, countless Chamber of Commerce forces had to give him some face. Today, he originally thought that once he opened his mouth, Chu Fengmian would obediently hand over the Dragon Blood Saint King pills and then leave with his tail between his legs. However, he didn't expect Chu Fengmian to not give him any face, and even ridicule him. How could Ouyang endure this? Good, very good. Looking at you, you're a disciple of the North Sea Academy? However, even if you're a disciple of the North Sea Academy, speaking to me like this is a crime punishable by death. Even Luo Zhanhen doesn't dare to be impudent in front of me. Ouyang's eyes stared at Chu Fengmian as he spoke word by word. Kneel down and cripple your own cultivation. Then, I'll spare your life. Kneel down? Cripple my own cultivation? You're just a kid at the Divine Force realm. Do you really think you're a high-level life and death expert? No one in the North region has the qualifications to make me kneel down. Chu Fengmian looked at Ouyang and coldly snorted. Ouyang? Sky Alliance's people? In front of me, you're just a barking dog. Chu Fengmian's words silenced the entire crowd. When the words barking dog came out, everyone was stunned. Each and every one of them looked at Chu Fengmian as if they were looking at a madman. Is this guy crazy? It's over. Sky Chamber of Commerce is going to see blood. The last person who dared to speak to Ouyang like this was killed by him on the spot. This is Sky Chamber of Commerce. They'll stop him, right? So what? Once he leaves Sky Chamber of Commerce, this kid will die all the same. I don't believe he'll stay in Sky Chamber of Commerce forever. Crack! The sound of tiles shattering resounded. The tiles under Ouyang's feet were directly crushed by him. Ouyang's face was already flushed red with anger. His heart was already burning with rage. Ouyang had moved unhindered in the Void Ocean. No one had ever dared to call him a dog. This kind of humiliation was even more unbearable than killing him. What a sharp-tongued kid. Let's see if your mouth can save your life. Die for me. Ouyang finally couldn't take it anymore. Waves of spiritual energy were released from his body, and the surrounding space began to shatter and change. Strands of space condensed in Ouyang hand, turning into a sharp blade. Without a sound, it suddenly slashed towards Chu Fengmian. This blade seemed to have fused with the surrounding space, making it impossible to guard against. It had no trajectory, and couldn't be dodged. It could appear from all directions at any time, condensing space into a blade. This is the ability to comprehend space law to the extreme. According to legend, Ouyang has the bloodline of the ancient divine beast, Kunpeng. He can control space. Unless it's a high-level life and death realm martial artist, it's almost impossible to block this blade. Moreover, even a high-level life and death realm martial artist can only break it with brute force. There's no good way to deal with space law. A spectating martial artist sighed in admiration. Kunpeng was one of the ancient divine beasts. Like the ancient war dragon, it was a peak existence in the ancient era. The ancient war dragon was powerful because of its tyrannical strength. As for Kunpeng, it was because of its comprehension of space law. According to legend, Kunpeng could travel through the void at will. It could easily shatter a part of the void and annihilate everything within it. In the ancient era, only a few peak existences of the 9 regions could contend against Kunpeng. Ordinary martial artists would instantly be annihilated in the void. Ouyang actually had the bloodline of Kunpeng. His comprehension of space law was extremely high. With such a bloodline, he was almost invincible in the same realm. The void longsword was silently slashing toward Chu Fengmian. It seemed like Chu Fengmian would fall under the void blade in the next moment. Chapter 563. Chu Fengmian's expression remained extremely calm in the face of this silent blade. Chu Fengmian stood on the spot with his hands behind his back. The moment the void blade slashed at him, Chu Fengmian slowly looked over. Rock bloodline? How dare you call yourself the rock bloodline with your extremely mixed bloodline? You only have a little bit of the rock bloodline. You're just a bunch of bastards. How dare a bastard bloodline be so arrogant in front of me? Chu Fengmian looked at Ouyang with extreme disdain. Ouyang bloodline was extremely messy. No one knew how many bloodlines he had mixed together. The true rock bloodline was not even 1,000th or 1/10,000th. Even the purest rock bloodline could only be on par with Chu Fengmian's ancient battle dragon bloodline. Such a bastard dared to attack in front of Chu Fengmian. What a joke! Break! Chu Fengmian calmly spat out a word, which turned into a dragon's roar. The void blades around Chu Fengmian were immediately shattered by the dragon's roar when they approached Chu Fengmian. Crack! Crack! All of them fell to the ground and shattered. At the same time, the dragon's roar turned into a sharp sword and stabbed at Ouyang. The roar was like a sword. Ouyang face suddenly changed. He did not expect Chu Fengmian's strength to reach such a level. Not only did he block his void blades, but he also turned into a sword and stabbed at him with a dragon's roar. It was a supreme killing move. Ouyang instinctively stepped back. At the same time, his spiritual energy crazily gathered around him. Condensed space as armor. The surrounding space condensed and turned into an armor around Ouyang. Bang! The sword pierced through Ouyang void armor. With a kacha sound, the void armor shattered into pieces and fell to the ground. At the same time, a blood mark was clearly visible on Ouyang chest. The blood mark was only a step away from Ouyang heart. What's going on? The crowd was silent. In the next moment, it was almost boiling. Am I crazy? Am I seeing things? How is this possible? A martial honorable screamed crazily. He could not believe what he was seeing. He was not the only one. Almost everyone was astonished and began to discuss among themselves. What's going on? How could Ouyang be injured? A single sentence, a single word, hurt Ouyang. Ouyang made the first move and was defeated. How is this possible? Ouyang's strength was publicly acknowledged in the Void Ocean. Among those at the Divine Force realm, there were only a few who could defeat him. Even Luo Zhanin, the #1 person on the Earth ranking of the Beimang Academy, would have a 50% chance of winning against Ouyang. No one would have thought that Ouyang would actually be defeated by an unknown brat. What made the countless people present even more unbelievable was that Ouyang was the one who had taken the initiative to attack. With Ouyang's strength, it was simply impossible for him to lose. As for Chu Fengmian, he did not even need to do anything. He merely uttered a single word to completely neutralize Ouyang's void condensed blade. The word turned into a sword and directly pierced Ouyang. This result was simply unimaginable. Even Elderly, a high-level life and death realm expert, was incomparably shocked when he saw this result. The only person who remained calm was Bai Xian. Bai Xian had seen Chu Fengmian kill 3 high-level life and death realm experts with her own eyes. Dealing with Ouyang was a piece of cake for him. Very good. Brat, I thought you were just an ant. It seems like you still have some strength. However, you have to remember that in the Void Ocean, no one can be arrogant in front of me, Ouyang. So what if I have some strength? You've offended someone you shouldn't have. Today, you'll still die. Ouyang roared. The bloodline power in his body was fully unleashed as a cruel smile appeared on his face. I only used 30% of my strength to test you. It's already your honor to be able to force me to use my full strength. Void freeze. Suppress. Ouyang suddenly attacked. The space law in his body burst out completely and was pushed to the limit. All of a sudden, the surrounding space froze, as if everything was under the control of the void freeze. Even the space around Chu Fengmian was frozen. What was frozen was not only the space, but also Chu Fengmian's body. It was as if Chu Fengmian and the surrounding space were going to be frozen and suppressed. Not good. Retreat. Void freeze. Just how terrifying must one's comprehension of the laws of space be to accomplish this? Retreat quickly. We can't be affected. Countless onlookers hastily retreated. If they were affected by the void freeze, they would also be suppressed. Even Mission Hall's Elderly waved his hand, condensing a barrier in front of him to resist the void freeze. With his high-level life and death realm cultivation base, he couldn't completely ignore the void freeze. This void freeze was Ouyang's strongest move. It was almost invincible under the high-level life and death realm. Facing the void freeze, Chu Fengmian's expression was as calm as ever. The disdain in his eyes didn't even change in the slightest. 30% of my strength? I don't even need to use 10% of my strength to deal with you. And here I thought you had some tricks up your sleeve. It's just SOSO. The corner of Chu Fengmian's mouth curled into a sneer. He finally moved. Chu Fengmian slowly raised his hand and shot out a palm. This palm didn't seem to have much power behind it. It seemed to be an extremely calm palm. However, the moment it was shot out, the supreme power contained within it erupted in an instant. Boom! The powerful energy contained in this palm swept through everyone in the surroundings in an instant. Everyone could feel an overwhelming power. This was merely the aftermath. The real power had already struck the frozen void. In an instant, it bombarded the void. Kacha! A shattering sound rang out. Countless cracks suddenly appeared in the frozen void beside Chu Fengmian. In the next moment, it completely shattered. Void freeze, Ouyang's strongest move, was actually broken just like that? Just how terrifying is this person's strength? I can feel that just the power of the aftershock is enough to easily crush me. The crowd was in an uproar. Ouyang had actually lost the upper hand. Even his strongest move was about to be broken by someone. Who could have imagined such an outcome? Chapter 564. In everyone's eyes, it was supposed to be a battle without any suspense. But now, It had turned into a one-sided battle. The result was the complete opposite. Ouyang had even used his strongest move, but it was easily neutralized by Chu Fengmian. This person's bloodline should be a special kind of bloodline. It might even be above Ouyang's Kunping bloodline. That's why he could defeat Ouyang. Elderly watched Chu Fengmian defeat Ouyang and was incomparably shocked. Ouyang was already a famous genius in the Void Ocean. He was strong enough to contend with the Northern Mang Academy's inner disciple Earth Rankings #1 expert, Luo Zhanhen. This kind of strength was already near the peak of the divine force realm. But now, he was actually defeated so miserably by Chu Fengmian. It wouldn't have been strange if it had been some famous powerhouse. However, Chu Fengmian was just an unknown youngster. Dragon bloodline. Could it be that this person obtained a great opportunity in ancient Dragon Emperor Yan's cave? It's very possible that the opportunities in the 6 caves have already been obtained. It's also very possible that this person obtained the opportunity in ancient Dragon Emperor Yan's cave. Elderly looked at Chu Fengmian and thought inwardly. This person's strength is immeasurable. Once he passes the life and death calamity, he'll at least have the strength of a high-level life and death realm expert. Although this person is a disciple of the Northern Mang Academy, his reputation isn't well known. His position in the academy shouldn't be high. Now is the best chance to rope him in. Elderly carefully analyzed in his heart and was already thinking of how to rope Chu Fengmian in. The strength Chu Fengmian had displayed was equivalent to a high-level life and death realm expert after passing the life and death calamity. It was enough for the major forces to rope him in. Kacha. The surrounding void freeze was completely shattered by Chu Fengmian's palm. Chu Fengmian's palm didn't stop there. Instead, it directly bombarded Ouyang. The boundless spiritual energy within the palm turned into numerous primordial battle dragons. Numerous primordial battle dragons intertwined with one another. It was much more mysterious than many dragon tribe martial skills. Feeling the power of this palm, Ouyang's face completely changed. His face was pale, and his eyes were wide open. His eyeballs were about to fall out. Ouyang had never imagined that his strongest technique, the Void Freeze, would be broken by a single palm strike like this. The power of this palm and the profoundness within it were much more profound than the countless martial skills he had seen before. Ouyang retreated continuously in an attempt to dodge. However, the power of this palm had completely locked onto him. No matter where Ouyang fled to, he would not be able to escape the power of this palm. How is that possible? I don't believe that I would be defeated by a nobody. Ouyang roared at the top of his lungs. Waves of spiritual energy erupted from his body once again. The way of the Kunpeng. Seal heaven and earth. Ouyang's body began to swell. His body turned into feathers, and within the feathers, there were ancient patterns. It actually showed the appearance of the ancient Kunpeng. Streams of spatial force were unleashed from Ouyang's body, sealing off the space around him to resist Chu Fengmian's attack. With Ouyang's strength, he had never treated a divine power realm martial artist as his opponent. Now, he had actually been defeated by a nobody like Chu Fengmian. This was simply a humiliation that he had never experienced in his life. Waves of light appeared from Ouyang's body, supporting his strength. Under this anger, the power of his bloodline was squeezed to the extreme. He displayed all of his strength, wanting to contend against Chu Fengmian. Squeezing the power of your bloodline? Even if you squeeze it to the extreme and increase your strength by 5 or 10 times, you still won't be a match for me. Chu Fengmian looked at Ouyang and said coldly. In front of me, you are just an ant. You dare to provoke me? Only death awaits you. Chu Fengmian slammed his palm down again. The power of this palm strike was 5 or 10 times stronger than the previous one. Ouyang squeezed his strength to the extreme and sealed off the space. Under this palm strike, it was completely shattered. There was no possibility for him to resist. Sir, please have mercy. Elderly's expression changed abruptly as he secretly transmitted his voice to Chu Fengmian. After all, this was the Sky Chamber of Commerce. If someone died here, it would be a great loss to the Sky Chamber of Commerce's reputation. Chu Fengmian glanced at Elderly, who was beside him. The power in his hand gradually weakened. Kneel down. Chu Fengmian's palm struck down. The supreme power within it pressed down on Ouyang body, causing him to kneel down in front of Chu Fengmian. Damn it. Damn it. How can I be defeated? How can I be defeated by this brat? Brat, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to grind your bones to dust. Ouyang knelt on the ground and roared at the top of his lungs. Now that he was defeated by Chu Fengmian and forced to kneel on the ground, he almost went crazy. With his status, when had he ever suffered such humiliation? I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill all of your family members. Friends. I'm going to let them die one by one in front of you. Kill. 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 Ouyang was firmly suppressed by Chu Fengmian's power. He knelt on the ground, but he didn't give up. He was still mobilizing the power in his body and attacking Chu Fengmian's power again and again. The power in Ouyang body seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. Every attack shook Chu Fengmian's power. Ouyang lived up to his name as a famous genius in the Void Ocean. Under such humiliation, his strength had improved and he had gained a new understanding of his strength. His strength was now much stronger than before. Brat, you're only making me stronger by suppressing me. Just you wait. I'll break through soon and kill you completely. Ouyang looked at Chu Fengmian with extreme hatred. His eyes were fixed on Chu Fengmian as if he wanted to grind his bones to dust. Break through? Ridiculous. Even if you were 100 times stronger, you still wouldn't be able to break through. Very well, I'll completely suppress you and make you forget about it. Chu Fengmian glanced at Ouyang and snorted coldly. He gathered the power in his hand again and hit Ouyang with his palm again. Ouyang body was trembling. This power was simply beyond his imagination. His face was filled with horror. All of Ouyang resistance was rendered meaningless by this palm strike. Today's first update. Although it's very late, there will definitely be an update. Chapter 565. How is this possible? How is this possible? Ouyang face was extremely lifeless. The battle intent that had just been ignited in his heart wanted to break through this adversity, break through Chu Fengmian's suppression, and kill him. But now, Ouyang face was filled with despair in front of this palm. No matter how Ouyang tried to resist the power contained in this palm, it would be meaningless. Even if his strength increased by 5 or 10 times, he still wouldn't be able to resist. Ouyang, this is the Sky Chamber of Commerce. I won't kill you, but since you dared to provoke me, you must pay the price. I'll take half of your saint's blood essence as compensation. Chu Fengmian looked at Ouyang and said coldly. This was the Sky Chamber of Commerce. If he killed someone here, he would definitely have a conflict with the Sky Chamber of Commerce. The Sky Chamber of Commerce was one of the top 10 forces in the primordial chaos continent. Chu Fengmian still wanted to do business with the Sky Chamber of Commerce, so he naturally wouldn't offend the Sky Chamber of Commerce for nothing. However, Chu Fengmian would never let Ouyang off. Anyone who dared to provoke Chu Fengmian had to pay the price. Taking half of Ouyang saint blood essence was enough to reduce his strength to that of an ordinary peak saint. It was equivalent to crippling Ouyang aptitude and making him unable to pass through a life-and-death tribulation for the rest of his life. For a genius like Ouyang, taking his saint blood essence and crippling his aptitude was more painful than killing him. Little bastard, how dare you! Ouyang suddenly roared when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. If you dare to touch me today, the Sky Alliance will definitely hunt you down. No matter how strong you are, you can't compete with the Sky Alliance. I advise you to be sensible and let me go obediently. Take out all your wealth and compensate me, and I can let you go. The Sky Alliance? What is the Sky Alliance? I've already said that in my opinion, the Sky Alliance is just a group of stray dogs. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian clawed at Ouyang. I originally wanted to give you a chance and take half of your blood essence. Since you don't know what's good for you, how dare you threaten me? Then I'll completely cripple you and take 90% of your blood essence so that you can never set foot in the void ocean again. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly and decisively grabbed at Ouyang. Ah! Ouyang screamed crazily as his saint blood essence was extracted by Chu Fengmian indirectly. The saint's essence blood fell into Chu Fengmian's hand and turned into an incomparably pure spirit stone. Even if Ouyang had the Sky Alliance behind him, Chu Fengmian would not care. He did not even use 30% of his strength to deal with Ouyang. Ouyang's body fell to the ground after 90% of his saint blood essence was extracted. 2 of T even? To step. Men, take him away. If I see him again, he'll die. Chu Fengmian said coldly as he looked at Ouyang. A few Sky Alliance martialists hurriedly walked out from the crowd and took Ouyang away. These Sky Alliance martialists were already scared out of their wits by Chu Fengmian's strength. They hurriedly left, not daring to contend with Chu Fengmian. Countless spectating martialists saw all this. They felt a chill in their hearts as they looked at Chu Fengmian with fear. What a ruthless method. Ouyang is one of the upper echelons of the Sky Alliance. It's said that he's about to reach the limits of the divine power realm. He's about to cross the life and death tribulation. Once Ouyang crosses the life and death tribulation, he'll be a high-level life and death realm martialist. Such a genius with a boundless future was actually crippled just like that. He's no different from a cripple after having 90% of his blood essence extracted. A martialist looked at Chu Fengmian as if he was scared out of his wits. Chu Fengmian's methods were too ruthless. A genius with a boundless future was crippled just like that. If it hadn't been done right in front of their eyes, they wouldn't have dared to imagine such a thing. Fortunately, we didn't provoke this person. Some martialists still had lingering fear in their hearts. Ouyang wasn't the only one who wanted the 5 Dragon Blood Saint King elixirs. Originally, many of them had wanted to extort Chu Fengmian when they saw his unfamiliar face. But now, it seemed like he had saved their lives. Otherwise, they would have been crippled. The Sky Alliance behind Ouyang isn't easy to deal with. Ouyang has a very high position in the Sky Alliance. It's very likely that the people of the Sky Alliance will stand up for him. Be careful, Bai Xian said softly to Chu Fengmian. After all, the Sky Alliance was one of the biggest forces in the Void Ocean. Even if there weren't many old men in the Sky Alliance, it was still a terrifying force when countless geniuses gathered together. Now that Chu Fengmian had crippled Ouyang and extracted his blood essence, he had truly fallen out with the Sky Alliance. It doesn't matter. If anyone from the Sky Alliance dares to come, I'll kill them. If the Sky Alliance doesn't know what's good for them, I'll destroy them. Chu Fengmian said coldly. Such a crazy sentence sent chills down everyone's spines when they heard it. Crazy. This person is a complete lunatic. Arrogant, too arrogant. How is it possible for one person to shake the Sky Alliance? Forget it. In a few days, this person will die in the hands of the Sky Alliance. Only death awaits him after offending the Sky Alliance. Countless martialists looked at Chu Fengmian as if he was a lunatic. The Sky Alliance was one of the biggest forces in the Void Ocean. There were thousands of Sky Alliance disciples. No matter how strong one person was, how could he contend with a major force? Only Bai Xian knew that Chu Fengmian was always a man of his words. Bai Xian even believed that if the Sky Alliance really offended Chu Fengmian, the Sky Alliance wouldn't be far from being destroyed. Chu Fengmian had always been a man of his words. Chu Fengmian didn't pay attention to the discussions of others. Instead, he turned his head and spoke to Elderly, I have a business deal to discuss with the Sky Alliance. I wonder if the Sky Alliance will do it. Of course, we will do it. Elderly was stunned for a moment before he spoke. Let's go to a quiet place first. With that, Elderly led Chu Fengmian to a palace. Chapter 566. This palace was located at the center of Sky Chamber of Commerce, but it was extremely quiet. The surroundings were filled with countless restrictions that sealed off this spiritual sense, making it impossible for the people outside to hear what was going on inside. Many businesses naturally had to be done in secret. The Sky Chamber of Commerce had done this flawlessly. Ordinary high-level life and death realm martial artists might not be able to pass through the restrictions with their spiritual sense. Only existences like the Undying Demon Venerable could do so. However, experts at the Undying Demon Venerable's level were all big shots. Who would dare to eavesdrop? Therefore, trading in this palace was naturally the safest place. Chu Fengmian arrived at the palace and sat on one of the thrones without any hesitation. Bai Xian also sat beside him. Elderly entered the palace and said to Chu Fengmian, "Sir, you were merciful just now. This old man thanks you in advance." "It's nothing. In Sky Chamber of Commerce, we naturally have to follow its rules. We won't kill anyone here," Chu Fengmian calmly said. "I've come to Sky Chamber of Commerce for a big business. I wonder if Sky Chamber of Commerce is interested." "Big business?" Elderly chuckled at Chu Fengmian's words. "May I know sir's name? This should be your first time in our Sky Chamber of Commerce, right?" Sky Chamber of Commerce was one of the largest forces in Primal Chaos Continent. There weren't many businesses that they couldn't do. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, they naturally felt that Chu Fengmian was a newcomer. Elderly said with a smile, "Many high-level life and death realm experts come to our Sky Chamber of Commerce to do business. I wonder what sir needs. Our Sky Chamber of Commerce has everything you need. Whether it's pills, spirit tools, materials, natural wonders, or even some information or bounties, we can do it all. My name is Chu Fengmian." "Not bad, this is my first time here," Chu Fengmian calmly said. "I'm planning to buy a batch of natural wonders as well as some body-refining pills." As Chu Fengmian spoke, he took out a list and handed it to Elderly. "Chu Fengmian?" Elderly thought for a moment upon hearing Chu Fengmian's name. He couldn't recall such a name among the experts of North Sea Academy. That meant that Chu Fengmian was a newly risen genius, or perhaps an unknown disciple who had suddenly risen to prominence. For such a person to suddenly possess such strength, he must have encountered a great opportunity. This kind of business was what the Sky Chamber of Commerce liked to do the most. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Elderly laughed loudly. "Heaven and earth oddities, body-tempering pills, our Heavenly Trade Association has everything." As he spoke, Elderly took the list from Chu Fengmian. His eyes swept over the names on the list. Dragon Emperor Herb, Sky Crystal, Mother Earth's Divine Vitality. This. Every time he read one of the names, Elderly's face became more and more shocked. Every name on the list was an extremely high-grade existence among the heavenly wondrous objects. This was especially true for the Sky Crystal, which was simply a legendary name. If Elderly hadn't read a lot of books and seen this name in ancient books, he probably wouldn't have known what this heaven crystal was. Every name on the list was worth at least as much as a royal-grade spirit stone. Elderly opened his mouth after a long time. "There are many things on the list that I've only heard of but never seen. There are only 7 or 8 that our Heavenly Trade Association has." "There are actually 7 or 8. This answer also made Chu Fengmian secretly shocked. The heavenly wondrous objects on the list were all useful to him. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, the wondrous objects that were truly useful to him were extremely high grade among the heavenly wondrous objects. Originally, Chu Fengmian thought that the Heavenly Trade Association would have 3 or 4 types of wondrous objects at most. He didn't expect there to be so many. The Heavenly Trade Association is located in the Primal Chaos Continent. The Void Sea is rich in wondrous objects. Now, I need to accumulate resources to raise my strength to the limit of the divine power realm in preparation to survive the life and death tribulation. These wondrous objects will be of great use to me. Chu Fengmian thought to himself, but his face showed that he didn't think much of it. Then bring them all over. I'll buy them all. This kind of nonchalant attitude made him look like a nouveau riche. These things are expensive. Are you sure you want to buy them? Elderly hesitated for a moment before reminding Chu Fengmian. I'm afraid that every one of them is more expensive than the Dragon Blood Saint King elixir. Of course. Chu Fengmian nodded. A king-grade spiritual stone appeared in his hand. This king-grade spiritual stone was the one that Chu Fengmian obtained from the ancient Dragon Emperor Yan Cave Mansion. Every piece had already been cut into the size of a transaction and was directly thrown to Elderly. This spiritual stone is a meeting gift from Chu Fengmian to Elderly. Elderly took the king-grade spiritual stone and took a closer look. The spiritual energy in it was extremely pure. The spiritual energy in this spiritual stone was almost without any impurities. It was a spiritual stone that couldn't be purer. It had surpassed the spiritual stones that martial artists could condense now. King-grade spiritual stone? This is a king-grade spiritual stone? Elderly looked at the king-grade spiritual stone in his hand and said in surprise. This kind of king-grade spiritual stone can no longer be condensed now. Only some ancient cave mansions have king-grade spiritual stones. You actually have one? Chu Fengmian smiled. He wasn't surprised by Elderly's surprise. In the Primal Chaos continent, the spiritual stones that were used for transactions were at most in the category of supreme spiritual stones. King-grade spiritual stones were extremely rare. They could only be found in some ancient cave mansions. A king-grade spirit stone could be considered a rare item in itself. Who would use a king-grade spirit stone to trade? That was why Elderly was so surprised. This king-grade spiritual stone is a meeting gift from me to Elderly. There are other spiritual stones that can be used for transactions. As Chu Fengmian spoke, he waved his hand. Dozens of spiritual stones appeared in front of him and flashed past. These dozens of spiritual stones were of a higher grade than the king-grade spiritual stone in Elderly's hand. A few of them had extremely pure spiritual energy, reaching the level of royal-grade spiritual stones. Royal-grade spiritual stones. Elderly's eyes were filled with astonishment. He was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly said, Young Master Chu is indeed rich. The things that you want are extremely precious. They are in our Heavenly Trade Association's treasury. Why don't I bring young Master Chu to the treasury? You can choose whatever you want. Chapter 567. Elderly looked at Chu Fengmian as if he was looking at a nouveau riche. Using king-grade spirit stones and royal-grade spirit stones to trade was an extremely extravagant act. King-grade spirit stones and royal-grade spirit stones would be auctioned if they were taken out. Using them as currency to trade was simply insane. Only Chu Fengmian, who had unlimited wealth and could directly condense spirit stones, would do such a thing. If they could trade for these king-grade spirit stones and royal-grade spirit stones, it would be enough to bring great benefits to the Heavenly Trade Association. If young Master Chu wants to trade with king-grade spirit stones, we can also give you the lowest price. Elderly hurriedly said, fearing that Chu Fengmian would not agree. All right, let's go take a look. Chu Fengmian said calmly. All right, let's go. Elderly nodded and brought Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian through space. They arrived in front of a stone chamber. Oh? This is a stone room? Chu Fengmian observed the stone chamber and discovered that it was actually built with a type of heavenly rock crystal, a wondrous material from the heavens. Heavenly rock crystal was an extremely special kind of crystal. It was extremely sturdy, but difficult to condense. It was considered a relatively low-grade extraordinary item, but it was extremely extravagant for the Heavenly Trade Association to build a treasury with heavenly rock crystal. Even if Chu Fengmian used all his strength, he would not be able to break this treasury. Young Master Chu, please follow me. Elderly came to the door of the stone room and activated the restriction on it. The door of the stone room opened with a loud bang. Elderly led Chu Fengmian into the room. Upon entering the stone chamber, one could see countless shelves at a glance. Countless mysterious objects were neatly arranged on them. Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw that a few of them were on his list. Bring them all over. Chu Fengmian pointed at 7 or 8 extraordinary items and said. These extraordinary items were all useful for Chu Fengmian to condense his body. Chu Fengmian's strength had reached the limit, but his body was far from it. Chu Fengmian could already feel that his life and death calamity was no small matter. One must know that when Chu Fengmian broke through to the divine force realm, he had attracted the 10,000 Thunder Emperor calamity. If it was a life or death calamity, it might be even more terrifying than the 10,000 Thunder Emperor's calamity. The life and death calamity was a life and death struggle. If one failed, they would die on the spot. The more talented a genius was, the more dangerous it would be. Chu Fengmian's power had already reached its limit, but his body was far from it. Chu Fengmian had to push his body to its limit in order to survive this life and death tribulation. All right. Elderly didn't waste his breath. He directly took out the 7 or 8 strange objects from the air, removed the restrictions on them, and handed them over to Chu Fengmian. The value of these items will be calculated together in the future. If young Master Chu needs anything else, feel free to choose. Chu Fengmian nodded his head and took the treasures. Then, he began to scan the treasures in the treasury. Suddenly, his eyes looked at one of the enormous eggs. This egg was 5 to 6 meters long. In the treasury, it occupied a large area. There were strange patterns on its surface, emitting waves of pure spiritual energy. There was even a faint dragon might in this spiritual energy. This is... The moment Chu Fengmian saw the egg, a trace of light flashed in his eyes. This is a dragon egg. It was obtained by a big shot of our Sky Chamber of Commerce. However, there is no life force in this dragon egg, so it can't be hatched. It only contains some spiritual energy, which is why it was placed in the treasury. Elderly said. If young Master Chu wants this dragon egg, you only need to pay 10 king-grade spirit stones. 10 king-grade spiritual stones. Isn't that price a little too high? Chu Fengmian frowned and said. After all, there is no life force in this dragon egg. Elderly explained. There is still some spiritual energy left in it, so it's not impossible to hatch it. Once it hatches, a true dragon, as a spirit beast, can be nurtured to be comparable to a high-level life and death expert. A dragon egg without life force, and you want to hatch it? How is that possible? Chu Fengmian looked at Elderly and shook his head. At most, 3 king-grade spirit stones. I cultivate Dragon Clan martial skills, so I can comprehend the Dragon Clan's true essence from this dragon egg. If it's more expensive, it won't be worth it. A dragon egg without life force. Apart from this, it has no other use. 3 king-grade spirit stones. Elderly's eyes flickered, as if he was considering something. Then, he said. If young Master Chu wants to settle with king-grade spirit stones, that's fine. Sure. Chu Fengmian didn't waste any time and directly put the dragon egg into his spatial ring. Then, he lost interest in looking at the other treasures. He turned around and left the stone room. These treasures are 52 king-grade spirit stones. Young Master Chu only needs 50 king-grade spirit stones. Elderly said excitedly. 50 king-grade spirit stones were equivalent to 500,000 lower-grade spirit stones. It was definitely a big deal. Their heavenly chamber of commerce didn't have such a big deal every day. In fact, they wouldn't have such a big deal for several years. This business deal was extremely beneficial to Elderly. All right. Chu Fengmian said calmly. He took out a big king-grade spirit stone from his hand. This piece of king-grade spirit stone could be cut into about 50 pieces. He handed it over to Elderly. Elderly carefully took the king-grade spirit stone and put it into his spatial ring. Then, he let out a sigh of relief. If there's anything on the list that you need, you can let me know. The price is not a problem. Chu Fengmian looked at Elderly and said. His current wealth was endless. He could exchange it for countless treasures to improve his strength. No matter how much wealth he had, it was meaningless without strength. Chu Fengmian needed to improve his strength to survive the life and death tribulation. The treasures that young Master Chu wants are all extremely valuable. Our heavenly chamber of commerce has accumulated these treasures for thousands of years. However, if young Master Chu doesn't care about the price, there will be a huge auction tonight. Elderly said. In this auction, there will be many treasures produced by the 6 ancient cave dwellings. However, with young Master Chu's wealth, you don't have to care about it. You can try your luck. After staying up until 5 o'clock, he finally finished writing the 4th chapter. He was so sleepy that he decided to continue writing after waking up. Chapter 568. Auction. Chu Fengmian's eyes lit up. With his enormous wealth, he naturally had to attend such an auction. Especially in this auction, there would be countless wondrous items produced from the ancient caverns. Chu Fengmian's extravagant purchases would be enough to raise his strength. That's right. Our Sky Chamber of Commerce will also attend this auction. If young Master Chu doesn't mind, you can come with this old man. Elderly looked at Chu Fengmian and said. The quota for this auction has already been set. There are no more vacancies. However, with our Sky Chamber of Commerce's status, it won't be difficult for us to bring young Master Chu in. The deal between Chu Fengmian and Elderly had brought great benefits to the latter. Now that he heard that Chu Fengmian intended to attend the auction, Elderly directly invited him to accompany him. Thank you so much, Elderly, Chu Fengmian nodded. Sky Chamber of Commerce was, after all, the local tyrant of the primal chaos continent. If he went with Elderly, it would save him a lot of trouble. It won't be long before night falls. Let's go. Elderly didn't waste any time and turned into a streak of light. This auction is being held by the #1 Chamber of Commerce in the primal chaos continent, Sky Reaching Pavilion. However, it's actually jointly held by countless chambers of commerce in the primal chaos continent. While walking, Elderly explained to Chu Fengmian. This auction is held once every 3 years. Although the scale is large, there are still vacancies from the previous auctions. However, all the vacancies have already been set. Because of the opening of the 6 great ancient caverns, countless wondrous items have appeared. Many big shots who aren't usually in the Void Ocean have come. Even some big shots from the western and central regions have come. Hearing this, Chu Fengmian inwardly nodded. The news of the opening of the ancient caverns was indeed enough to make the entire 9 regions go crazy. Especially for a legendary big shot like Dragon Emperor Yen Gu. His caverns were likely enough to attract terrifying experts beyond the life and death realm. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian had received the news in advance and rushed over immediately. Only then could he collect so many treasures. Otherwise, if he really encountered those old fogies beyond the life and death realm, he wouldn't have any chance of competing with them. Young Master Chu, you must have benefited greatly from the ancient cave abode. Elderly said quietly, as if he was chatting casually, but there was a hint of probing. That's right. In this ancient cave mansion, I have indeed obtained quite a fortune. Chu Fengmian didn't try to hide it at all. He was like a nouveau riche. With so much wealth on him, everyone knew that Chu Fengmian must have encountered a great opportunity. Since that was the case, he might as well reveal it openly. With his current strength, there weren't many people who could pose a threat to his life. Chu Fengmian and Elderly chatted as they arrived in front of the city gates of the Heavenly Merchant Association. 7 or 8 figures immediately appeared around them the moment they stepped into the Heavenly Merchant Association. These people blocked Chu Fengmian's path to the Sky Chamber of Commerce. These figures were all young martial artists. Each of them had a dignified appearance, and each of them was extremely talented. The strength of these people was not below the top 10 of the North Mang Academy's Earth ranking. They are from the Sky Alliance. Why are they suddenly blocking the entrance of the Sky Chamber of Commerce? Look, that's Jianwang. How can his aura be so weak? His essence blood has been extracted. Who is so crazy to extract Jianwang's essence blood? Look, that's Floodyu. He's one of the deputy lords of the Sky Alliance. A big shout of the Sky Alliance has come. Seeing countless Sky Alliance disciples appear in front of the Sky Chamber of Commerce, a commotion broke out. Now, so many people from the Sky Alliance had gathered here. Even the deputy lord of the Sky Alliance, Floodyu, had appeared. Floodyu? Chu Fengmian glanced at Floodyu, who was a ferocious-looking man. Floodyu's aura was even stronger than Ouyang Lai's. Especially Chu Fengmian, he could feel that Floodyu had only shown a small part of his strength. He had hidden his strength very well. He probably had countless tricks up his sleeve. Boy, you finally came out. Ouyang Lai looked at Chu Fengmian and walked out of the Sky Chamber of Commerce with a ferocious face. Alliance Lord Hong, it's this boy. He's the one who injured you and extracted your Saint Blood essence? When Hong Yu heard Ouyang Lai's words, he suddenly turned to Chu Fengmian and glared at him. You're the one who injured Ouyang Lai and extracted his Saint Blood essence? His eyes seemed to contain endless murderous intent. Just looking into his eyes was enough to make one feel terror in one's heart. If it had been a slightly weaker cultivator, just looking at Flood Prison would have been enough to make them run for their lives. However, Chu Fengmian didn't care. He had a firm mind. No matter how strong a warrior was, he wouldn't be afraid. That's right. Chu Fengmian spat out 2 words. What he did was what he did. He didn't need to hide anything. Do you know that Ouyang Lai is a member of our Sky Alliance? Floodju's murderous intent surged when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. Then how dare you extract his Saint Blood essence? Now, kneel down and apologize to Ouyang Lai. Then, destroy your cultivation and hand over all the wealth in your empty ring. If you do that, I'll leave you with a whole corpse. Chu Fengmian was speechless when he heard Floodju's words. Floodju's words were extremely arrogant. Asking Chu Fengmian to kneel down and apologize, destroy his cultivation, hand over all the wealth, and leave him with a whole corpse? No one could make Chu Fengmian do that. Even if someone could, it wasn't Floodju. Are all the members of the Sky Alliance idiots? Chu Fengmian sneered. Who do you think you are? How dare you order me around? Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? Now, I'll give you a chance. If all of you kneel down and hand over all the wealth in your empty ring, I won't extract your Saint Blood essence. That's the price for offending me. What do you think? Chu Fengmian's words caused an uproar. The Sky Alliance was one of the most powerful forces in the primordial continent. Floodju was a big shot in the Sky Alliance. He was the deputy Alliance Lord. In the primordial continent, the Sky Alliance had always been the one bullying others. They had never been bullied. Courting death? Floodju's face suddenly changed. His eyes were burning with anger. Suddenly, he struck out a palm. Chapter 569. Flood Prison made his move. He struck out with his palm. The moment his palm was formed, countless black fog appeared around him. This black fog was not a demonic will, but something even more sinister, something extremely evil. Surrounded by the black fog, Flood Prison struck out with his palm. Countless people felt a chill in their hearts when they saw this scene, as if they had fallen into an incomparable fear. Purgatory Demonic Palm. Beside Chu Fengmian, Bai Xian's expression changed when she saw the palm strike. This is Flood Prison's ultimate skill. It is said that he once had a great adventure in the Void Ocean and learned the Purgatory Demonic Technique. This Purgatory Demonic Technique is even more terrifying than the Eternal Demon Domain. Once it is used, one will be tortured to death by endless pain. Once the Purgatory Demonic Palm struck a martial artist's body, they would suffer endless pain. This pain was enough to make many martial artists with weak wills die from the pain. The pain of the Purgatory Demonic Technique was not only physical, but also spiritual. Even a saint would not be able to withstand it. Brat, prepare to suffer endless pain. I will make you beg for death. Flood Prison smiled malevolently. He wanted to use the purgatory demonic technique to thoroughly torture Chu Fengmian. How dare you show off in front of me after knowing some trash demonic techniques? Chu Fengmian looked at Flood Prison's palm strike with an extremely calm expression. Little demonic technique. Break. Roar. Chu Fengmian spat out a word indifferently. A dragon's roar suddenly resounded. The dragon's roar contained the purest dragon might of the war dragon. The power of the ancient war dragon could restrain all evils. The purgatory demonic technique could not escape the possibility of being restrained. Although the purgatory demonic technique was powerful, it was not very effective in front of Chu Fengmian's war dragon might. Along with the dragon's roar, the palm strike formed by Flood Prison's purgatory demonic technique immediately dissipated. All the power contained within it was directly neutralized. All the surrounding martial artists were shocked. Flood Prison had not shown any mercy when he attacked. Instead, it could be said that he had used his full strength, including the purgatory demonic technique. At the very least, he intended to kill Chu Fengmian with this move. Among the Divine Power Realm martialists in the Void Ocean, there were less than 10 people who could block this purgatory demonic palm. Many of them had to pay a great price to block it. Just like that, a single word from his mouth was enough to dissolve the power of the purgatory demonic palm. This was simply unheard of and unseen. Where did this person come from? First, he defeated Ouyang Lai and extracted Ouyang Lai's Saint Blood essence. Now, he's strong enough to contend against Flood Prison. We've never heard of such a person in the northern region. To be able to contend against Flood Prison, this person's strength is indeed terrifying. However, the fact that he was able to neutralize Flood Prison's Inferno Hell Devil art isn't because of how powerful he is. Rather, it's because his cultivation technique seems to be able to neutralize Flood Prison's Inferno Hell Devil art. Let's wait and see. Flood Prison's strength is not that simple. He is a major character of the Heavenly Alliance. Even if he does not possess the purgatory demonic art, he is still a major character. This short exchange of blows caused countless discussions. A major character of the Heavenly Alliance like Flood Prison rarely took action. No one had expected that Chu Fengmian would be able to withstand his attack. This greatly surprised countless people. However, no one was optimistic about Chu Fengmian's strength. Flood Prison's strength was not as simple as it seemed. Although the purgatory demonic art was restrained, Flood Prison was still a terrifying character even without using the purgatory demonic art. In everyone's opinion, how many moves could Chu Fengmian withstand from Flood Prison? Dragon Clan's martial technique? Flood Prison instantly understood when he saw Flood Prison's Inferno Hell Devil art being neutralized. The Dragon Clan's martial technique was indeed extremely restrained against all demonic techniques. His purgatory demonic art was indeed naturally restrained by the Dragon Clan's martial technique. Chu Fengmian looked at Flood Prison and shook his head. His eyes were filled with disdain. Is this all the strength of the Heavenly Alliance's people? That's a little disappointing. Arrogant. Flood Prison suddenly roared when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. His tone was filled with murderous intent. Boy, it seems like you've really had some fortuitous encounters. So what if you know some Dragon Clan's martial technique? Even without the purgatory demonic art, you're just an ant in front of me. Army! Suddenly, a pitch-black stick condensed in Flood Prison's hand. The pitch-black stick appeared out of nowhere and smashed towards Chu Fengmian. Although this strike seemed ordinary, it was actually split into thousands and thousands of phantoms. Each of the phantoms was illusory, making it hard to tell whether they were real or fake. 3,000 phantoms. Flood Prison's army Dao. It has reached such a level. Each of the 3,000 phantoms is half real and half fake. Each of them could be real. If you want to resist it, you must resist all 3,000 phantoms. Everyone was shocked when they saw Flood Prison's means. This move was indeed very powerful. Unless one could resist all 3,000 phantoms at the same time, one would be besieged. In a confrontation of this level, falling into a disadvantageous position was like being consigned to eternal damnation. It was very difficult to turn the tables, and one could only be defeated. Boy, you've infuriated me. Now, you'll pay the price for my anger. Die! Flood Prison roared ferociously. The 3,000 black stick phantoms fell at the same time. 3,000 phantoms? How dare you talk nonsense? Ridiculous! Chu Fengmian strode forward. Facing the 3,000 black stick phantoms, he did not dodge. Instead, he met them head-on. What is he going to do? Is he going to resist the 3,000 phantoms? This man is courting death. It's hard to escape from the 3,000 phantoms. How can he resist the 3,000 with his own strength? Facing the 3,000 phantoms, ordinary people would only think of running away. They would try to avoid facing the phantoms as much as possible. This kind of head-on confrontation was simply a madman's behavior. Even Elderly furrowed his brows. He knew about Flood Prison's 3,000 phantoms. The most powerful part of this move was the frontal attack. Facing the 3,000 phantoms head-on. A divine power realm martial artist. He would die. Sword. Everyone looked at Chu Fengmian, feeling that he would be smashed into meat paste by the 3,000 phantoms in the next moment. Chu Fengmian called out softly. In his hand was a sword condensed from sword intent. 10,000 layers, one sword. The moment Chu Fengmian's sword tip fell, the sword chi within it suddenly erupted. Chapter 570. Whoosh! In an instant, Chu Fengmian's sword fell. In an instant. Tens of thousands of sword chi struck out at the same time. Everything around seemed to be trapped in countless sword chi. The whole space turned into a world of swords. What? The crowd couldn't believe it. Tens of thousands of sword chi. Just now, Chu Fengmian's sword was divided into tens of thousands of sword chi. In terms of the comprehension of weapon Dao, Chu Fengmian's sword Dao even surpassed Flood Yu's 3,000 phantoms. How is this possible? 10,000 sword chi. This is the legendary realm. Countless sword Dao grandmasters in the northern region have not reached this level. Where did this man come from? How can he have such a terrifying sword Dao? Some of the sword cultivators in the crowd went crazy when they saw Chu Fengmian's sword Dao. 10,000 sword chi was definitely a realm that countless sword cultivators in the 9 regions dreamed of. Countless people were mad with jealousy. This. Hong Yu's expression changed drastically when he saw the 10,000 sword aura. However, he regained his confidence in the blink of an eye. So what if you're strong in sword Dao? If you don't have enough strength, it's just a showy but impractical move. Real strength is the king. Watch how my 3,000 phantoms destroy your sword Dao. Break! Flood Yu's spiritual power was fully displayed. All of it was added to his 3,000 phantoms. He wanted to break 10,000 with one force. He wanted to win with strength. Seeing this, Chu Fengmian sneered in his heart. Chu Fengmian was not afraid even if it was a competition of strength. Do you think you're my opponent because you want to compete with me in strength? From the moment you dared to provoke me, you were doomed to lose. Chu Fengmian's face was extremely calm. With a thought, he activated 10,000 sword chi and attacked at the same time. Boom! 3,000 phantoms and 10,000 sword chi collided in the air. The aftermath was extremely terrifying. It was not inferior to the full strength of many warriors present. The collision was extremely fierce, but the outcome was decided in an instant. Only to see that there were still 10,000 streaks of sword energy. All of the power within the 3,000 illusions of flood hell was devoured by the 10,000 streams of sword chi. Not just in terms of martial comprehension, but in terms of strength as well. When everyone saw this scene, they were all stunned. Everyone present was well aware of Flood Prison's strength. Everyone was already incomparably shocked that he had lost in the comprehension of martial arts. However, it was not incomprehensible for some geniuses in the sword Dao to appear in the northern region. After all, a genius was still a genius. No matter how high one's comprehension of the sword Tao was, without strength, it was meaningless. However, to be able to break through Flood Prison's 3,000 illusions, this was no longer just a matter of martial Tao comprehension surpassing Flood Prison. In terms of power, Chu Fengmian even surpassed Flood Prison. How could the Deputy Alliance Master of the Sky Alliance be so weak? This thought suddenly appeared in the hearts of some warriors. No one could believe that a person who had always been close to being invincible had actually lost so miserably. However, the great majority of the crowd had their gazes fixed on Chu Fengmian. It wasn't that Flood Prison was weak. He was invincible in the outside world, but Chu Fengmian was too strong. Chu Fengmian's strength was strong enough to crush Flood Prison. That was why Flood Prison was defeated so miserably. Impossible. I've had countless fortuitous encounters. How could I lose? Flood Prison roared crazily, as if he was still unable to accept the scene before his eyes. He had never imagined that he would be defeated by Chu Fengmian. In Flood Prison's opinion, Chu Fengmian was just a nobody who wasn't even qualified to make him take him seriously. How could he have imagined that he would be defeated so thoroughly by Chu Fengmian? He had no strength to fight back at all. I've said it before. You're just an ant before me. No one in the divine power realm can contend against me. Chu Fengmian looked at Flood Prison and said coldly, "Since you've offended me, you'll suffer the same fate as Ouyang Lai. Kneel before me." Boom! As Chu Fengmian spoke, an extremely terrifying pressure appeared from his body. It was like a mountain that crazily raised Chu Fengmian's body, making him look like a colossus. Endless dragon power gushed out from Chu Fengmian's body as if he was the Dragon Emperor. Waves of dragon power pressed down on Flood Prison, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Damn it! Bastard! You want me to kneel? Impossible! I'm a real genius. I'll definitely become a great figure in the future. Only people kneel before me. No one can make me kneel before them. Flood Prison roared crazily. He gathered all his spiritual power to contend against Chu Fengmian. Boy, you've offended me. The Sky Alliance will never let you go in the future. Let me go now. This is your only way out. The Sky Alliance? If the people of the Sky Alliance are all idiots like you, then the Sky Alliance has no right to exist. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed some disdain when he heard Flood Prison's words. How dare Flood Prison threaten him when he was at death's door? Kneel! Chu Fengmian waved his hand and a terrifying pressure pressed down on Flood Prison's body. The pressure broke the bones of Flood Prison's knees and forced him to kneel on the ground. Puff! Hong Yu spat out a mouthful of blood. He was on the verge of fainting. Almost everyone could not believe their eyes when they saw Flood Prison kneeling on the ground. Who would have thought that the deputy leader of the Sky Alliance, Flood Prison, would be defeated and forced to kneel on the ground? He could not resist at all. It was impossible for him to even escape. Flood Prison is kneeling on the ground. He's crazy. He's really crazy. Are we dreaming? Even in our dreams, we wouldn't have thought of this. Where did this man come from? Beimang Academy? I've never heard of such a person in Beimang Academy. Could he be secretly trained by Beimang Academy? Countless onlookers seemed to wake up from a dream. Flood Prison's defeat was like a clap of thunder that exploded in their hearts. Now that Flood Prison was on his knees, they came to their senses and realized that Flood Prison's defeat was not fake. Flood Prison, didn't you want me to destroy my cultivation? Since you've offended me, I'll let you be like Ouyang Lai and take 90% of your saint's essence blood as compensation. Chu Fengmian looked at Flood Prison and sneered. Suddenly, he clawed at Flood Yu's body with his big hand. Chapter 571. Stop! Almost at the same time, countless martial skills suddenly bombarded Chu Fengmian. The remaining disciples of the Sky Alliance could not bear it any longer. All of them attacked. A total of 7 disciples of the Sky Alliance joined forces and bombarded Chufengmian with countless martial techniques. When the 7 Heavenly Alliance disciples worked together, the power contained in the countless martial techniques was several times stronger than flood prisons. Almost every disciple of the Sky Alliance was an outstanding lone wanderer in the void ocean. Their strength was not inferior to the top 10 martial artists of the Beimang Academy's Inner Gate Earth list. How terrifying would the power of 7 such geniuses be when they joined forces? The 7 of them joined forces and displayed their supreme mystery to bombard Chufengmian. Their intention was to save Floodyu from Chufengmian. Chufengmian, let Floodyu go now and we can let you go this time. Otherwise, you won't be a match for us if the 7 of us join forces. A disciple of the Sky Alliance looked at Chufengmian and said coldly, "No matter how strong you are only one person after all. Our Sky Alliance is a colossus. You know what to choose." Countless people present were not surprised that the disciples of the Sky Alliance suddenly attacked. The Sky Alliance had always been a whole. The strength of the Sky Alliance was not the strength of one person, but the strength of the whole alliance. In the Void Ocean, there were Divine Power Realm martial artists who could defeat Floodyu. However, no matter how strong they could not compete with a force. No matter how strong they were incomparably weak in front of a force. Many people looked at Chufengmian and thought that Chufengmian had to know when to advance and when to retreat. Chufengmian had been in the limelight by defeating Floodyu. If he retreated now, although the limelight would be suppressed, he could still retreat unscathed. However, if Chufengmian did not retreat now, not to mention the whole Sky Alliance, even if the 7 disciples of the Sky Alliance joined forces, they would not be a match for any Divine Power Realm martial artist. Many ants could kill an elephant. Moreover, these disciples of the Sky Alliance were all elites. They were not ants. Young Master Chu, retreat when necessary. Elderly, who was standing aside, whispered to Chufengmian. He did not want to see Chufengmian clash with the Sky Alliance. After all, no matter how powerful Chufengmian was, how could he fight against the Sky Alliance alone? With Chufengmian's current strength, as long as he did not take the initiative to provoke the Heaven Alliance would not take revenge on Chufengmian. Retreating now was the best choice. However, under this kind of threat, there was no way he would back down. Chufengmian would never do that. In his previous life, he wouldn't. In this life, he still wouldn't. Heavenly Alliance? Behemoth? A bunch of ants gathered together, do they really think they can overturn the heavens? Chufengmian suddenly laughed out loud. He looked at the 7 people and said coldly, "The people of the Sky Alliance are indeed idiots. Since you want to save Floodyu, you should kneel down like him." While speaking, Chufengmian's palm suddenly moved, and a surge of dragon power condensed in his palm. Immediately, his right hand transformed into a huge war dragon claw, which descended from the sky and smashed downwards. While condensing the war dragon claw, Chufengmian's left hand directly clawed at Floodyu's head. Floodyu's body began to tremble. His spiritual power began to fluctuate, and all his saint blood essence was about to be drawn out. Damn it! This guy is too arrogant. Let's attack together and crack his Dragon Clan martial technique. Then we can save Deputy Alliance leader Floodyu. Kill! Kill! How dare he fight against the Sky Alliance? Even if he has 10 lives, he will die today. The disciples of the Sky Alliance roared crazily when they saw Chufengmian's attack. They all unleashed their spiritual force, which transformed into countless mystical martial skills. These martial techniques bombarded the War Dragon Claw at the same time, trying to resist the power of the War Dragon Claw. "You're courting death." Chufengmian spat out 2 words indifferently. These 2 simple words had sentenced all the disciples of the Sky Alliance to death. Boom! The scales on the huge War Dragon Claw were engraved with countless runes. These runes contained mysterious power. Suddenly, the power of the War Dragon Claw increased by more than 10 times. No matter how many ants join forces, they can't fight against the War Dragon. War Dragon Claw, shatter everything. Chu Fengmian roared, and the War Dragon Claw fell from the sky. The powerful aura engulfed everyone present, especially the 7 disciples of the Sky Alliance. They were almost immobilized by the power of the War Dragon Claw. They couldn't resist the terrifying power at all. Boom! The War Dragon Claw collided with the martial techniques of the 7 disciples of the Sky Alliance. These incomparably mysterious martial skills were actually unable to shatter a single scale on the War Dragon's claw. They were unable to shake it at all. The War Dragon Claw exerted a little force, and the martial techniques of the 7 disciples of the Sky Alliance were all shattered. In terms of power, they were not on the same level. Kneel! The strong spiritual energy contained in the Battle Dragon Claw turned into a terrifying pressure and crashed down. The bodies of the 7 disciples of the Sky Alliance cracked under the pressure. Their bones were about to be crushed. In an instant, they all knelt on the ground. The 7 disciples of the Sky Alliance knelt in front of Chu Fengmian in an orderly manner. Almost everyone present held their breaths. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. When the 7 disciples of the Sky Alliance joined forces, even Flood Prison couldn't resist such a terrifying power. But now, it only took one move. The 7 disciples of the Sky Alliance were defeated by Chu Fengmian and knelt on the ground. Could this be his true strength? When he fought against Flood Prison earlier, he was merely playing around. A martial artist muttered to himself in a daze. The power of the War Dragon Claw was several times stronger than when Chu Fengmian defeated Flood Prison. This meant that Chu Fengmian didn't use his full strength when he defeated Flood Prison. He was just playing around. If Chu Fengmian used his full strength from the beginning, everyone present would be suppressed by him in one move. 7 disciples of the Sky Alliance couldn't resist Chu Fengmian's one move. Who would believe it? Invincible. This was a real invincible figure. There were many invincible figures in the Divine Power Realm and the Void Ocean. However, those people were all laughable existences in front of Chu Fengmian. This man is invincible in the Divine Power Realm. A martial artist muttered to himself, which represented the thoughts of everyone present. Chapter 572. The news of this battle would spread throughout the Void Ocean within a day. Chu Fengmian's name would resound in every corner of the Void Ocean. Kid, don't be complacent. You've offended the Sky Alliance by asking us to kneel down. Do you think you're invincible in the Divine Power Realm? Our Alliance Master is powerful enough to kill a life and death realm expert. He's a real big shot. You've angered him, so you'll die. A Sky Alliance disciple knelt on the ground motionlessly, his face flushed red. He felt humiliated by the gazes of the surrounding martial artists. Even so, he was unwilling to admit defeat. He believed that the Alliance Master of the Sky Alliance would definitely kill Chu Fengmian to avenge them. In the hearts of all the Sky Alliance disciples, the Alliance Master was the real invincible figure. That's right, kid. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, you'll still die. Another disciple of the Sky Alliance roared. Is that so? Chu Fengmian sneered and waved his hand. A hole suddenly appeared on the chests of all the Sky Alliance disciples. Chu Fengmian directly extracted the essence blood of countless saints and fused it into his body. The Alliance Master of the Sky Alliance? If he comes, he'll end up the same as you. Chu Fengmian sneered. What Alliance Master of the Sky Alliance? Powerful enough to kill a life and death realm expert? Chu Fengmian could even kill the immortal demon Venerable. Alliance Master of the Sky Alliance was nothing to him. Moreover, as long as Chu Fengmian's strength improved and his body reached perfection, he would be able to pass the life and death tribulation. Once he passed the life and death tribulation, Chu Fengmian would be able to do whatever he wanted in the North region. All of you, kneel here. I want everyone to know the consequences of provoking me, Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian snorted and turned to Elderly beside him. Let's go to the auction. Elderly glanced at the Sky Alliance disciples kneeling on the ground. He hesitated for a moment but didn't say anything. He left with Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian. Countless people didn't breathe a sigh of relief until Chu Fengmian's figure was far away. Chu Fengmian's methods were too ruthless. Not only did he defeat the Sky Alliance disciples, but he also extracted their saint blood essences, including the Deputy Alliance Master, Hong Yu. He had extracted 90% of their saint blood essence, which meant that these Sky Alliance disciples had all become useless. This was a great loss for the Sky Alliance. Especially now, all the Sky Alliance disciples were kneeling on the ground. In front of the Heavenly Chamber of Commerce's city gates, it was an extremely crowded place. Everyone could see this scene. In the Void Ocean, Chu Fengmian was the only one who dared to deal with the Sky Alliance. So what? Even the Deputy Alliance Master, Hong Yu, was defeated by him. The Sky Alliance can't take revenge even if they want to. Hong Yu is nothing. The most terrifying person in the Sky Alliance is their Alliance Master. The Sky Alliance was established by the Alliance Master. It's hard to say if the Alliance Master takes action. Don't worry so much. Anyway, the Sky Alliance bullies us a lot. We just need to watch the show. The crowd of onlookers also gradually dispersed. Only a portion of them had dispersed. However, everyone knew that there was another terrifying genius in the Void Ocean. On the other side, Elderly led Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian to the center of the Primal Chaos Continent. The auction of the Primal Chaos Continent was held by the top force of the Primal Chaos Continent, the Sky-Reaching Pavilion. The Sky-Reaching Pavilion was located in the center of the Primal Chaos Continent. Chu Fengmian, the Alliance Master of the Sky Alliance, is indeed not a simple person. As they flew, Bai Xian thought to herself. The Alliance Master of the Sky Alliance is called Hun Sangsheng. I've heard of his name before. It's said that he has indeed killed high-level life and death realm experts. His strength is unfathomable. You have to be careful. Oh? He can kill high-level life and death realm experts in the Divine Power realm. This strength is indeed not bad. However, if he dares to provoke me, I'll make him pay the price. Chu Fengmian said with a smile. He didn't care at all. His strength was almost invincible in the Divine Power realm. Chu Fengmian didn't believe that there was any Divine Power realm expert who could be his match. Moreover, if Chu Fengmian bought some rare items from the auction house, it would be enough to condense his body to the extreme. At that time, Chu Fengmian might be able to contend against some old antiques among the high-level life and death realm experts. As long as I can find enough rare items and arrange the sacred sacrifice, my body will soon reach the extreme of the Divine Power realm. Chu Fengmian thought of the dragon egg in the empty ring and felt extremely excited. It was Chu Fengmian's good luck to be able to come across this dragon egg. This dragon egg was indeed a dead egg without any vitality. However, it wasn't the egg of a true dragon, but an egg of nirvana. Even powerful existences would fall one day. If one wanted to contend against time, the only way was to be reborn through nirvana. This nirvana Tao had been passed down since ancient times. When some experts reached the end of their lifespan, they would condense all the energy in their body into a single point and be reborn through nirvana. In exchange for another lifetime of lifespan. Chu Fengmian could feel that this dragon egg was the result of a Dragon Clan expert's nirvana rebirth. However, this expert had failed in nirvana rebirth and lost his vitality. The nirvana Tao was a heaven-defying path. The chances of success were less than 10%. Although the powerhouses within had lost their vitality, the spiritual energy within the dragon egg had been preserved. A Dragon Clan expert who could choose to be reborn through nirvana was at least at the level of a dragon emperor. The spiritual energy contained within the dragon egg was probably extremely abundant. However, the energy within could not be extracted directly. Instead, it required a sacred sacrifice technique to extract the energy within. This sacred sacrifice art was extremely ancient. It was used in ancient times by the Manchu clan to refine a living person's body and extract their spiritual energy. The spiritual energy in this dragon egg couldn't be used. However, the sacred sacrifice art was enough to extract all the energy in it. With the energy contained within this dragon egg, as long as the saint sacrifice is used, it will be enough for my body to reach the advanced level. The saint sacrifice requires many materials. However, I have already obtained many materials from the ancient dragon Emperor Yen cave dwelling. I only need to purchase a few of the most important materials to set up the saint sacrifice. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Thank you for Fan Shanwen's reward. These 2 days, Xiao Yu had been moving house. Basically, she wrote in the wee hours of the morning. Therefore, the updates were very late. You can read it in the morning. Chapter 573. Chu Fengmian had come to the auction house to buy some items that could help him refine his body. However, he had changed his plans. As long as he completed the sacred sacrifice, the benefits he would receive would be much better than 100 elixirs like the Dragon Blood Saint King elixir. It would not be easy for Chu Fengmian to refine his body to the limit. He would need at least 1,000 elixirs like the Dragon Blood Saint King elixir. The items he had obtained from the Tianchang Chamber of Commerce were just a drop in the bucket. However, the Nirvana Dragon Egg had given Chu Fengmian a shortcut. As long as Chu Fengmian used the sacred sacrifice art and extracted the spiritual energy from the sacred sacrifice dragon egg, it would be enough to refine his body to the limit. It would save him a lot of trouble. The biggest auction house in the void ocean. Don't let me down. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. The group flew through the air. The space around them had shrunk to an inch. In less than 2 hours, they had crossed the Primal Chaos Continent and arrived at the center of the Primal Chaos Continent. Is this the biggest force in the Primal Chaos Continent, the sky-reaching pavilion? Chu Fengmian looked ahead. There was a huge tower in front of him. It was 1,000 meters tall and 10,000 meters wide. It was huge. At a glance, it was extremely eye-catching. There were countless shops in this tall building. Countless cultivators were walking through them, doing business. The sky-reaching pavilion alone was many times more prosperous than the 9-cauldron ancient city in the Qin Empire. Compared to the sky-reaching pavilion, the 9-cauldron ancient city was like an ant. This was the real trading place. We are qualified to attend the auction. Let's go. There are some shops in the sky-reaching pavilion. If young Master Chu wants to take a look, you can come back after the auction. After all, the auction is more important. Elderly said with a smile. The group of people immediately flew up to the highest peak of the sky-reaching pavilion. They landed on the highest floor of the sky-reaching pavilion. Please show us your identity. A few martial artists asked politely when they saw Chu Fengmian and his group. Those who were able to participate in the auction were all well-known figures in the void ocean. Otherwise, they would not even be qualified to participate in the auction. One had to know that the value of this qualification alone was enough to equal a king-grade spirit stone. Many cultivators couldn't even afford a qualification even if they had all their wealth. Elderly casually took out a jade talisman and handed it over. On the jade talisman were the words sky-piercing. I'm here to bring 2 friends in. Is that okay? A warrior took the jade talisman and injected his spiritual energy into it. Elderly's identity information appeared on it. So it's Elderly of the Heavenly Chamber of Commerce. The venerables bowed respectfully. With Elderly's status, of course there's no problem. Skyroom 11, please come in. A martial artist led Chu Fengmian and the others into a private room. This private room was extremely secretive, and was covered with countless restrictions. It was even more secretive than the private rooms of Sky Chamber of Commerce, which showed just how powerful the sky-penetrating pavilion was. There were a total of 100 such rooms, and the top 20 rooms were occupied by Tianzi. As for the bottom 80 rooms, they were occupied by Earth rooms. As for the Xian and Huang rooms, they were seated at the bottom. However, even the seats were extremely spacious. They were extremely comfortable. Oh? The fruits in this private room are all Xian-grade spirit herbs? Chu Fengmian sat on one of the thrones and looked at the fruits placed beside him. This fruit was a kind of spirit herb called the purplish-green fruit. It had the effect of strengthening one's essence energy from martial artists below the divine power realm. Although its value was not high, it was extremely extravagant for it to be treated as a fruit in this private room. The people in the heaven-class boxes at the Sky-Reaching Pavilion's auction are all well-known figures in the Void Ocean. The Sky-Reaching Pavilion will definitely treat them well. Elderly said with a smile. However, only the heavenly rooms are so extravagant. The rooms below are far inferior to them. Although the purplish-green fruit's grade is not high, it is extremely sweet and refreshing. It is extremely popular in the Void Ocean. As Elderly spoke, he picked up one of the purplish-green fruits and ate it. Chu Fengmian, who was beside him, also picked up a purplish-green fruit and bit into it. A sweet taste filled Chu Fengmian's mouth. The sweetness made one feel refreshed. There was also a surge of pure spiritual power that merged into Chu Fengmian's mouth. This surge of spiritual power was meaningless to a martial artist at Chu Fengmian's level. Chu Fengmian's spiritual power in one breath was 100 times more than the purplish-green fruit. However, it was quite useful to a martial artist in the wind-controlling realm. Not bad. Chu Fengmian nodded with a satisfied look on his face. This purplish-green fruit was indeed very refreshing. If young Master Chu likes it, why not buy some and store them in the empty ring? Anyway, the purplish-green fruit is extremely cheap. With young Master Chu's wealth, you don't need to care about it. Elderly said with a smile. There will be a fragment of an extreme path celestial weapon in this auction. I wonder if young Master Chu is interested. A fragment of an extreme path celestial weapon? Hearing Elderly's words, Chu Fengmian's expression changed slightly. As soon as he heard about the fragment of an extreme path celestial weapon, Chu Fengmian thought of the Emperor Jar. Extreme path celestial weapons were extremely rare in the 9 domains. It could be said that there were less than 10 records of them in ancient books. Especially extreme path celestial weapons, which were extremely powerful, how could it be so easy to shatter them? Chu Fengmian's expression was calm, but his spiritual sense quietly moved and spread out. His spiritual sense was much stronger than the spiritual sense of a high-level life and death realm expert. It quietly left the box and spread into the Sky-Reaching Pavilion. Inside of the Heaven-Span Pavilion was a stone dais, filled with countless treasures, each and every one of them extremely valuable. These should be the auction items of this auction. Among the countless treasures, Chu Fengmian was incomparably familiar with the aura of one of them. In one of the jade boxes, there was a broken tile. A fragment of the Emperor Jar. It's really a fragment of the Emperor Jar. Chu Fengmian was extremely shocked. He didn't expect to come across a fragment of the Emperor Jar again. The fragments of the Emperor Jar were scattered in every corner of the 9 domains. It was extremely difficult to come across one. Chu Fengmian was already extremely lucky to get one from the Void 5 Tyrants. He didn't expect to see another one in this auction. Chapter 574. The power of the Emperor Jar will increase exponentially with every piece I obtain. Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. He had already obtained 3 fragments of the Emperor Jar. If he could get this one, he would have 4 fragments, which was close to half of the total. Unless someone obtained all 5 fragments of the Emperor Jar, it would be impossible to get the Emperor Jar from Chu Fengmian's hands. Otherwise, the Emperor Jar would only be taken away by Chu Fengmian if he died. It was extremely difficult to obtain even 1 fragment of the Emperor Jar. It was almost impossible for one person to obtain the remaining 5 fragments. I must get this fragment of the Emperor Jar. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. He had unlimited wealth now. No matter how much he had to pay, he must get this fragment of the Emperor Jar. Young Master Chu, you seem to be interested in the fragment of an extreme immortal weapon? Elderly naturally saw the surprise that flashed across Chu Fengmian's face. However, he wasn't surprised by Chu Fengmian's reaction. An extreme immortal weapon was a legendary item. Even a fragment of it hadn't appeared in the 9 regions for 10,000 years. A fragment was enough to cause a great commotion. Of course, I'm interested in the fragment of an extreme immortal weapon, Chu Fengmian said. Although it's only a fragment, the power contained in it shouldn't be weak. Yes, it's said that the power in this fragment is no less than a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. Elderly couldn't help but sigh. An extreme immortal weapon is a legendary item after all. The power of a fragment is comparable to a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. With young Master Chu's wealth, you can compete for it. However, you may not be able to get it. I'm afraid that this fragment of an extreme immortal weapon will be sold at a sky-high price, Elderly said with a smile. The news of the fragment of an extreme immortal weapon has already spread throughout the 9 regions. It's said that some forces in the central and western regions have sent people to compete for it. Therefore, it won't be easy to get it. Yes, I'm just interested in this fragment of an extreme immortal weapon. After all, it's something that can only be found by chance. Chu Fengmian smiled casually. The major forces of the central and western regions? Right now, Chu Fengmian's wealth was comparable to an ordinary colossus. Compared to the Beimang Academy, it was still inferior. However, Chu Fengmian didn't believe that the Northern Mang Academy would be able to take out a spirit spring to buy such a fragment. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had the wealth of his entire bloodline, so it was worth half a spirit spring. In terms of wealth, Chu Fengmian was not inferior to any power. While Chu Fengmian was conversing with Elderly, the auction hall below was already filled with people. The auction venue was incomparably huge. At a glance, Chu Fengmian could see that there were over 10,000 thrones below. Currently, the 10,000 thrones were already filled with people. There were no more empty seats. Chu Fengmian could feel that the surrounding private rooms were already full. More than 10,000 warriors above the pinnacle of the Saint Realm. There are so many people in the Void Ocean. Chu Fengmian sighed. A pinnacle saint was enough to rule over a small country. They were absolute giants. In front of him, all the seats in the auction venue were actually full. Usually, there aren't so many people. In the past auctions, it's not easy to fill 50% of the seats, Elderly explained with a smile. However, the news of the appearance of the 6 ancient cave mansions has attracted countless experts from the 9 regions. That's why this auction is so full. Indeed. Chu Fengmian nodded. He scanned the crowd with his spiritual consciousness. Naturally, he could see that among the countless warriors, many of their auras and cultivation methods were not from the northern regions. Instead, they were from the central and western regions. The auction has begun. While Chu Fengmian was talking, a voice suddenly came from below. An elder slowly walked out from the upper stage. Treasures were carried onto the stage one by one. Many of the treasures were difficult to find in the northern regions. Some of them were even extinct in ancient times. Now, because of the ancient cave mansions, they had reappeared in the world. This elder is not simple. Chu Fengmian glanced at the elder and could see that he was definitely an expert. He could not detect much spiritual power on his body. It seemed that he did not even have the strength of the wind-controlling realm. However, Chu Fengmian knew that this was all the elder's concealment. The elder's strength had already reached the realm of returning to one's original state. That was why he looked so calm. This elder is a big shot of the sky-reaching pavilion. His name is Spiritual Venerable. It's said that his realm has reached the 8th level of the life and death realm. He's an outstanding figure among the high levels of the life and death realm. When Elderly saw this old man, his face was filled with respect. It seems that the sky-reaching pavilion is also attaching great importance to this auction. They actually invited him. 8th level of the life and death realm. The strength of this spiritual venerable was even stronger than that of the undying demon venerable. Chu Fengmian felt that with his current strength, he would only have a 50-50 chance of winning if he fought with the spiritual venerable. However, this was only Chu Fengmian's current strength. If Chu Fengmian refined his body to the extreme, he would have a 90% chance of defeating or even killing the spiritual venerable. He's actually the host. Among the crowd below, some people recognized the spiritual venerable and exclaimed in surprise. What's the origin of this elder? An elder who doesn't even have the strength of the wind-controlling realm dares to host this auction. There were also some warriors who came here for the first time and were puzzled. Not even in the wind-controlling realm? This spiritual venerable is an outstanding figure among the high levels of the life and death realm. He's a real big shot. He can crush someone like you with a finger. One of the venerables said in disdain. This kind of conversation continued. Quiet. Only when the spiritual venerable gave a stern shout did the crowd completely quiet down. This sky-reaching auction starts now. Everyone should be clear about the auction's rules. You can pay with spirit stones or take out mystical items. As long as the price is the same, it's enough. The spiritual venerable said. Of course, the sky-reaching auction also has its own rules. If you can't take out enough wealth, don't blame our sky-reaching pavilion for being impolite. When he said this, the spiritual venerable's voice contained a bit of killing intent. This killing intent made people shudder. Although the spiritual venerable didn't say it clearly, everyone understood. There was only one outcome for those who dared to disturb the sky-reaching auction: death. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.